How we doing today, boys?
Pretty good. I did as I promised. Went to the gym this morning, so we got that underway. I've discovered the life hack is don't start New Year's resolution, especially that one because it's a popular one until 2 weeks after New Year's because then everyone else who started on New Year's has already quit. Gym was empty this morning. It was great. But yeah, I'm ready to be back, talk college football, NFL playoffs. It's going to be a fun show. We may get live reaction to some big news concerning a certain portal player. Jordan Seaton is a guy that State's been after since he entered the portal. What was that, Wednesday of last week? Something like that. And he took a visit to here. Then he went to Miami. And he's been at LSU. And he has not left LSU as far as I know. He was supposed to visit Oregon last night, and he just never left Baton Rouge. So maybe Lane is cooking. But I hope that we get good news. I think today is the last day he can commit to LSU. I think he can commit to us as late as early February is what I saw from one of our On3 beat writers. So we'll probably have news about that. Maybe not live, but at some point today. And I hope it's good news, but we'll see.
I also hope it's good news. I mean, I'm not feeling too optimistic.
I'm not either, but also I am. I'm very optimistic.
Okay.
But not.
How's your day been, JP?
It's been good.
Sick.
That's about it.
That's sometimes all it is just it's been a good day. Nothing crazy has happened, and sometimes that's what makes it a good day, honestly. It's just kind of it's been one of those chill days. I've been building a platform at work that then we're going to put ramps off of so they can do like vehicle testing off of it, right? But it's been cold, and so every morning we go out there to start working, and the wood has frozen. It's gotten wet in the night and then frozen over, so it's a pain to work with. It's kind of horrid, not gonna lie. You're like freezing your fingers off. We're good. Cool. Yeah, if you're freezing your fingers off, trying to get that done. But besides that, my day's been good.
Fire.
Yeah.
Trying to think anything else. I had a great weekend. The vacation, me and all my old roommates got together in Alabama because it's like a central point. We spent the weekend together. It was great. And yeah, watched a lot of football. I played disc golf for like the first time in a long time. Had so much fun. I may have to get into that. We shall see.
Everyone's getting into it, man.
Yeah, maybe not. I should avoid it. I'll just do the New Year's resolution thing and wait till it's out of mainstream again. But
Sure.
I don't know. I enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. And then have been home today working on a lot of stuff, catching up from the weekend, getting podcast stuff ready to go. I feel like this is the most prepared I've been for podcasts in a while, which is exciting. Did a little bit of research on the Bears after their loss, a little bit of research on Carson Beck in Miami after their loss. So it'll be fun to talk about that kind of stuff. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, just chilling. Ready to, looking forward to intramural basketball season is kind of what's up next. Big first game on Monday.
It's huge.
Got to lock in. Got to stay dialed. Chromie says tomorrow I'll be at the game in the chat, referring to the A&M Mississippi State basketball game.
Oh, bet.
And Chromie, will you be in State gear or A&M gear?
See, it's interesting we're talking about State and A&M. Is this the segue for you to make your declaration?
No.
Okay.
No.
You're not going to do that live?
Not that I won't do it live. I'm just not doing it yet. That's being tabled for now.
Because once we go on a run.
No. I just got to work out some kinks.
All right.
Josh Hubbard, Jersey.
A
There
Hersey.
you go.
Is that a...
So he'll be cheering for State as they lose to Buckyball. We'll see. Well, let's get into the show. It's a national championship game for college. We'll review that first, and then we'll get into the divisional round NFL games that happened over the weekend, and we'll break down those. And that's what's on the docket for today. Yeah. Miami and Indiana faced off last night, actually, in Miami. Though technically not a home game for Miami. It was in Miami, just how it worked out. For all the marbles, national title, trophy on the line, and Indiana wins. It comes down to a Carson Beck pick with about a minute left as Miami's driving to try and win it. Can't get it done. Can't say I'm too surprised Carson Beck couldn't get it done. Though shout out to him. He got it done the week before. So maybe that's harsh of me to say. But Miami pulls it out. Close game, good game. Pretty happy with what we got, honestly, as like an unbiased viewer. I don't have rooting interest in any of these teams. I just kind of wanted a good game, and I feel like we got a pretty good game. What are y'all's thoughts? What did y'all see? What do y'all like? Keys from the game.
I thought we had a great game because I'm not going to lie, when Indiana kicked that field to go up 6, that was kind of worst case scenario for me because I was like, we're either going to get a great game and I'm going to hate it because I want Indiana to win, or Carson Beck's probably going to go throw a pick. And that's just kind of like, I think that, those drives, the late drives that kind of fall flat are a little anticlimactic, but I was willing to take suffer that loss as far as entertainment value goes in order to have a more Indiana win. Because I think that's what the majority of people are cheering for, just because it's such a cool story, and Mendoza's a likable goofball, and a lot of the stuff coming out of Indiana is really fun and has been enjoyable this season. The first thing, like I said, I did a little bit of research on Carson Beck, so I was actually going to start there, because you've seen the tweet, I imagine, that's like Carson Beck has lost 6 games in his time in college, and 4 of them he had the ball in his hands, and like
I did not see that.
Oh, did you not? I think it was I saw it. I think I bookmarked it. It was an Athletic tweet, I believe. I'll pull it up real quick. Yeah. Throughout his college career at Georgia and Miami, Carson Beck lost only 6 games, and 4 of those matchups, the final offensive snap was a Beck interception with a chance to win. So 4 of his 6 losses, he choked, or whatever you want to say. I was doing a little bit of research because I was curious. Like, that makes it look really, really, really bad, or it looks bad on him, right? To have those 4 losses, basically in his hands. I went back and looked at some of the other games, and he really isn't, like, we joked about him not being clutch. He's got 4 like game-winning drives basically, so he's like 50%, which I don't know. Like, across college football, your best quarterback's probably better than 50%. But I just feel like the jokes that we made, and also that narrative, like kind of like shows him as not a 50% quarterback. It's a lot lower than that. But he had field goal, 46-yard drive, game-winning field against Notre Dame to start the season. He had the go-ahead touchdown against Texas A&M with 1:44 left. Go-ahead touchdown against Ole Miss with 18 seconds left. And then I think last season he had a go-ahead touchdown against Auburn with 3 minutes left, 27-20. So that was one thing I thought was interesting, was like, I feel like the narrative, and I've been guilty of that. We joke about him not being clutch. I just thought that was an interesting little bit of digging as far as Carson Beck goes, as he gets ready to go to the next level potentially. We'll see how that goes as we get into our NFL mock draft and our draft discussion. But that was my first thing I wanted to talk about.
With the 6th pick in, holy crap, I can't believe I've just done that. I was about to say with the 6th pick in the 7th round.
That's just where your brain went?
That's where my brain went.
That's crazy.
Carson Beck gets selected. That's tough for me. Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like 50% is really fantastic. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
I don't actually know what the numbers are, so I could just be way off on that. But especially, like, a lot of those ending on a pick, and especially, like, last night, is not a good throw.
Yeah.
The DB makes a good play, but it doesn't really see the coverage right. He doesn't really have the strength to make that throw in the first place, so that it's just an easy pick for the DB. Like, I don't feel like he's consistently putting his team in the best chances to win in those moments. He's still more of a game manager type quarterback, because even like you have the go-ahead touchdown drive against A&M, that was almost all on the ground.
Yeah.
Mark Fletcher had a fantastic drive. Malachi Toney, it was technically a pass, but it's like a little swing pass. Malachi Toney houses it. So he's good at like managing the game. He's still not elite, but Miami knew that's kind of what the situation they were getting themselves into with him, right? And he just couldn't get it done. So
yeah,
the knock I don't think is necessarily been that he's been unclutch. It's that he's played on great teams and great rosters, great coaches, great programs, and he consistently is the reason they lose games.
yeah.
It's not been that the defense played bad. No, it's been Carson Beck threw 3 interceptions. Carson Beck threw 4 picks against Louisville in an inexplicable game when you're ranked the number 1 team in the nation at that point. That has been more so, for me at least, the knock on him is that he has been the reason pretty much every time that his team loses the game.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I don't put this loss necessarily entirely on him. I put it on the entire team. But consistently throughout his career, that's been the knock. He's the reason they lost to SMU and Louisville this year. There's no argument outside of that. And then losses last year with Georgia is likewise. His play wasn't good enough during those games.
Yeah, and I mean he's not. He did throw the pick to seal the loss here, but it's not like he had a horrible game or anything like
I
that.
mean, it was his only interception of the day, you
Sure.
know.
I don't want to
Which
turn
for him,
this-
that's high praise.
turn the national championship recap into a hating Carson Beck session, but he
Yeah.
definitely has had his lower moments in his career. I mean, like when Miami gets the ball back down 6, I wasn't really that worried. Chromie's in the chat right now. The first thing Chromie sent into my chat was just a group of old high school friends, family friends, was like game-ending interception incoming, and then 3 minutes later, I get to send the text that says "seer," and everyone emphasizes it because he was right, and it wasn't like he made some insane actual predictions like he really was a seer. It just kind of felt like that's kind of where we were headed. So, in terms of actual stats, Miami actually played Indiana really well. They were very similar in terms of total yards. Carson Beck threw for more yards than Mendoza did. Mendoza easily had his worst performance of the playoffs. Not that it was like that bad. He just had been.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about the stats: 6 incompletion, 8 touchdowns. They held him to well below that level of production. Miami, that is, and like they were in a chance to win this game, and no one else could really have said that in the playoffs in terms of teams that have faced Indiana so
Only
far.
one team all season. That was Penn State.
The really back-breaking, crucial play is the punt that Indiana blocks that ends up being a punt blocked for a touchdown. That's a massive swing play and ends up really costing Miami.
The other thing I'll say is Miami did exactly what they needed to do in the trenches, which was a big question that we had coming into this game. Were they going to be able to run the ball, and were they going to be able to dominate that Indiana offensive line? Fletcher finished with 17 carries, 112 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That offense, I think that was over 6 yards per carry, if I'm not mistaken. Watching the run game work, I was like, every time they ran it, I was like, yep, this is working really, really well. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they had 3 sacks, 4 QB hits, 7 QB hurries, and held Indiana to 2.9 yards per carry. So, and some of that takes, sack yardage into account, but still a really dominant showing, which is kind of, I didn't know that we expected dominance, but we expected this to be one of Indiana's toughest matchups.
Yeah.
And then Miami does come in and play really, really well in the trenches, which is kind of what they needed to do in order to have a chance, which they did end up having. And I don't even know if the QB hurries take into account the early Mendoza block, where he goes and he just takes a shot to the chin because he's blocking for his running back. And I think he might have gotten hit So they were constantly putting pressure on Mendoza. There was one where they hit him and he goes into the back of his offensive lineman's legs. Stuff like that was just like this Miami defensive line is doing everything they can. Ruben Bain and Mesidor doing everything they can to keep them in this game. And it almost worked, but a really good showing from the trenches for Miami.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't be – I kind of feel like they won that matchup just like you said. Just wasn't enough because Indiana finds ways to get it done.
Because Charlie B. from Nashville, Tennessee, on a little just like – I mean, it's just a 50-50 ball, and he just turns around, and the Miami defensive back turns it like it's already in his hands. And he has when he caught the ball, I kept thinking the Miami guy's going to punch it out, and it's just like, no, it's wrapped up, and it's not going anywhere. So
I really wish he was on my team.
It's such a fire.
Sick.
Yeah, Charlie B. from Nashville, Tennessee. I wish Gus Johnson announced every Mississippi State football game to start with. But beyond that, Charlie Becker just had a great game. And I feel like he was kind of a late. I feel like it started out the season. It was Omar Cooper Jr.
He had 11 catches before November.
Yeah, that was exactly what I didn't know that stat. But it was Omar Cooper Jr. and Elijah Surratt, thank you, who had the 3 touchdowns each in 2 games. And then Charlie B kind of comes out of from nowhere and has a really great back end of the season, and then in the playoffs just had a couple of huge games. So shout out to him for his performance and some big catches. I think he had a 4th down catch. Just some wild stuff from him, and I felt like it was the same route every time. So
he just big broed the DB multiple times.
Yeah.
What do you see in this game, JP?
Well, I mean, y'all touched on a ton of it. To touch on it more, I thought Miami, obviously they gave them the best test that I think Indiana's seen so far this year. Now, Indiana's had to go on game-winning drives before, but they hadn't been in that kind of spot where it did feel like the game was completely in balance, and it felt like it was out of their control. Because even in the comeback drive against Penn State, it was in their control.
Yeah.
It was in Mendoza's hands. It was whether or not he was going to make the play. And likewise against Ohio State, it was his drive in the fourth quarter that kept it out of reach. This one, it felt like it was out of their control, and it's a huge credit to Miami, who outgains Indiana in this game. Sanders already touched on Mark Fletcher. He went for 120 total yards, 2 touchdowns. Malachi Toney had 122 receiving yards on 10 catches and a touchdown himself. They outgained Indiana. They also had almost 300 total yards in the second half, like a complete flip of the switch from one half to the other. They started 0 for 8 on third down. They finished 3 for 11, so going 3 for their last 3, which was super critical in this game. Reuben Bain especially, but even Akeem Mesidor to a degree were really quiet in the Ole Miss game. They were not quiet in this game whatsoever, combining for a sack each on one drive to start the second half. But for Indiana, it was the fact that they found answers to that. Even in a fourth quarter or a second half where they had, it was near barely 100 yards total, they found answers to the problems that Miami gave to them. And that was the RPO game early on, especially Mendoza hitting the very quick when he saw the separation and coverage, just hitting the quick 5-yard hitch route to his receiver. They were picking up free gains, and that when it flips in the second half because Xavier Lucas comes back from the targeting call against Ole Miss, they start playing a lot more press coverage, and so you see Mendoza in situations where he can't do that. He has to pump. He has to hold the ball. And so to adjust to that, they go to Charlie Becker. They hit him on 2 critical 50-50 balls, including 1 fourth down. They stuck to the run, which is something that coaches are very quick to go away from, especially offensive coordinators, of course, that are calling the plays. When in the second half you are struggling to run the football, you stick to it. They ran it 37 times, over 130 total yards on the ground. That final drive, I think the most critical drive, the drive, of course, that puts them up 6, they have the ball with 6 minutes, 30 seconds left. Miami has 3 timeouts. They burn all 3 timeouts. They get the clock all the way down to, 140, give or take.
Yeah, something like that.
And they kick a field goal, score 3 points, and force Miami to go down and have to score a touchdown. Like, that drive was unbelievably critical in this game. I thought more critical than the 2 fourth down conversion drives that they had. The QB draw, of course, was critical for the touchdown, and Mendoza has probably one of the highest, national championship moments in national championship history with that kind of run that he had. The hits that he's taking in this game, which I think we can talk about that to a larger degree in other shows, but after the game specifically, when we talk about his NFL draft and his NFL future, the hits that he took in this game, though, there's just, you have the one where he hands it off and he's completing the fake, takes a pop straight to the face. Earlier on that drive, there was an obvious, I thought, roughing the passer that they just refuse to call. He has the hit where he gets hit in his side and he gets turned horizontal. Of course, he has the 2 hits that he suffers on the QB draw. You saw his elbow all tore up. I would imagine he's got bruises all up of his rib cage and his back this morning. For him to fight the way he did, it was, what a showing from Fernando.
100%.
For someone who won the Heisman, he had all of his best moments were post the Heisman, being awarded the Heisman. All of his best moments were that. 6 incompletions, 8 touchdowns in the first 2 games. And then the plays that he had in this game, complete credit to him. Obviously, I knocked him at the beginning of the season. He has blossomed in front of everybody's eyes. And I give a ton of credit to Mendoza for the way that he played this year. And again, it feels like every single time that they've interviewed him in these post games, of course, it's a weird character. It's abnormal to everybody, but you can tell how cerebral he is with the way that he responds to the questions that he's asked. The way he's completely open to talking about how much pressure is on a moment like this, how much a moment like this means to him, where he's talking about how he was a 2-star quarterback and Miami wouldn't even allow him to walk on and play quarterback at Miami, and so he's forced to go on to Cal, and he ends up back here playing in the stadium that's 10 minutes from his home team that he grew up, cheering for, winning the national championship. He's completely open talking about that, and so for him to even mention it, you can just tell that was something he thought about for a week straight. But I think it gives a ton of credit to him because he did not let that he doesn't let that wear him down. He understands the significance of the situation and yet is still able to overcome that. And that's something that really not that, I don't mean it in a demeaning way, but only psychopaths think that way.
Sure.
Tom Brady thinks that way, where he understands the moment that he's in, but he's able to mentally overcome that and not let that affect him whatsoever. Mendoza, I think he rightfully so should be the number one pick in the draft. The way that he's elevated his play, his accuracy is unbelievable. I mean, that speaks to the 6 incompletions, 8 touchdowns, but he doesn't miss on these back shoulder throws, and that's something that not a lot of quarterbacks are great at. We think of Rodgers as someone who is elite at it. He throws it like Rodgers did, also a Cal quarterback, by the way. I think the way that he's as good as Elijah Surratt and Omar Cooper and even Charlie Becker have been this year, I think he's elevated all 3 of them, and he's really turned all 3 of them into because no one was talking about these guys. No one was talking about this team. They were 100-1 to win the national championship coming into the year. He's elevated all 3 of them into where, I think all 3 of them are going to be studs in the NFL. I think Elijah Surratt is immediately going to be a wide receiver 2,
I'll
if
take
not
any
1.
of them on my team.
Charlie Becker, Josh Pate said he thinks Charlie Becker is going to play for 10 years in the NFL, and
Crazy,
he's wide receiver 3.
He's only a sophomore, too.
Yeah,
We're
he
gonna
can't
see
even declare. He's going to have one more year with Josh Hoover. And next year.
Do you think he'll be fine with a furry throwing him the football? There could be some interesting chemistry issues there.
I don't know. That'll be an interesting debate that we'll have to have. And then Omar Cooper is a speed threat. I think all 3 of them are going to be NFL studs, and it speaks to what Mendoza did to elevate those guys this year with his play, with his leadership. You can't really put enough positive light into it.
Sure.
And it speaks also to what a lot of people opened their national championship reactions with is what this means for the sport and what Indiana accomplished.
Yeah.
They were 6-117 versus top 10 teams in their career. They were 6-0 this year. Indiana coming into the year had the most losses in college football history. That honor now goes to Northwestern.
Oh, I thought it was still Indiana. I'm not going to lie.
No, Northwestern lost enough to have more losses than them now. So it's now Northwestern. Shout out Mike Wright.
It's your turn,
But
Northwestern.
Mike Wright was at ECU this year. They're 27-2 under Cignetti, and they had the second highest point differential in college football history this year, only to 2013 Florida State and Jameis Winston. What they've done is unprecedented. That goes without saying. And it begs to wonder: is this how the sport's going to go forward? What kind of impact does this put on coaches that are being hired somewhere? Obviously, we both joked about our head coaches with A&M and State, but I've seen people calling out Deion Sanders at
People
Colorado.
are doing it not jokingly.
Yes, 100%.
People are doing it not jokingly about our schools, too, which is great. Well, I don't know about A&M.
I mean, people have been saying this about A&M for years, that there's no reason to not win at A&M.
So I think that's going to put a lot of unwarranted pressure on a lot of coaches, but it also it opens the door for fans, because now you think, well, we are just one coach away. We're one coaching staff away. We're one transfer portal class where you bring in a quarterback like Fernando Mendoza away, and if the losingest program in college football history can go out and win a national championship, it's critical. It's also critical for fans because when you go and win a national championship at Virginia in the video game, well, now it's that could actually happen in real life. Yeah. It actually holds a little bit more validity.
Yeah, this isn't a fantasy land.
So it's unprecedented.
And it's especially true for State fans because we were probably the 3rd closest team to a national championship last night, if you think about it. With our president
Mark
and
Keener
his family
right
being
true.
on the field for the interviews and everything. mean, we've tasted it more than 133 other teams in college football. So, that's another big factor. The one thing I'll say about Mendoza, me and Jack were talking about this last night, and love to hear your thoughts, JP.
Well, before you give it yet, I want you to deliver this as if you're like a talking head at ESPN, like giving your case for why Fernando Mendoza shouldn't go first overall. Like because we know there's someone's going to come on the first take at some point during this draft cycle with the take of like, I would not take Fernando Mendoza. Fernando Mendoza is not my QB1 because like they have to stir up controversy, right? No one wants a boring draft cycle where everyone knows who's going first overall. Everyone knows who the best quarterback is. So I want to see you give your best like impression of that guy as you deliver this like this critique. So
yes, for the viewers, this critique is this big. I'm gonna try and project it as this big.
Well, you have to because you have to parlay this into the reason he should not get drafted first overall.
I love Fernando Mendoza, but you think about all the great NFL quarterbacks: Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. All these guys, they have escapability in the pocket, right? Josh Allen does it with his power. Lamar Jackson with his speed. Patrick Mahomes because he's just a freak and he'll throw horizontal throws. I don't think Mendoza has that. Watching him in the game last night, he doesn't have elite speed, and he doesn't have the Josh Allen power. There was a couple times where he would get hit, and it was just kind of like there was one sack especially where I was like, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, neither of those guys is going down to that sack. It was the one where he kind of like got swatted across the arm and he just kind of like curled up and fell over. I was like, Josh Allen would just shove the guy down. Justin Herbert would just step out of it like it was a bear trap and avoid it. But I didn't see that from Fernando Mendoza watching last night personally. So I think there's other guys out there. I would much rather have like a Taylor Green, an athletic beast at first overall, as opposed to Fernando Mendoza.
A plus for effort. Pretty well done. It is. I don't know if a bear trap is that easy to step out of.
Well, when you're Justin Herbert or Josh Allen, it is.
Okay, gotcha.
That's the whole point. Is Fernando Mendoza would get stuck in the bear trap. The elite quarterbacks, they step out of the bear trap.
Okay, sure.
Do you like the Taylor Green was kind of off the cuff? It just came to mind as like one of the athletic beasts of the draft.
I mean, he probably is the most athletically gifted quarterback in this draft.
Yeah.
If he goes first overall, that'd be the biggest shock of all time. I wonder what he probably doesn't have odds to go first overall.
They're not available.
Just real quick before we get your take on that, JP, I'm going to ask Trail so we can get to crafting in the chat. Trail is in the chat saying he would not take Mendoza, and so I'm interested to see his reasoning for that.
Yeah. Also, welcome back, Trail. We are back in the studio. Good to be back.
Yeah, I mean, I do think his pocket presence is, in my opinion, the biggest weakness of his game. It can be lacking at times. Sometimes he just kind of gets rocked, and it seems like he should have seen it coming. Kind of like some of the hits C.J. Stroud was taking last week, where it was like the guy is running right at you, and it's like it
wasn't.
Like
it's not even a blind side. It wasn't even a blind side.
It's drilled. Yeah. And speaking of some of the hits he takes, there's like a big pro of that, of being like, I love to see he can take these hits and withstand it. At the same time, I would not like him to take some of those hits that I think are avoidable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's knocks that I've had on him, I've mentioned this one every time we talked about a knock, is that he's not a quarterback that I've seen him go to his second read, much if at all this season. There's some specific people on Twitter that have literally watched his entire games and have noticed, like, we're talking like 10 out of like 16 games where he never threw a pass to his second read. I push back on myself and those people in saying that, well, it doesn't matter when you're that perfect to your first read every single time. But when you get to the NFL, your first read's going to be taken away a ton. The best teams are going to do that, and especially if you have one weapon on the outside, unlike Indiana, where they've had, in terms of college football, they have three really good weapons to throw to. If it's just one weapon, that's very easy to take away, and then you're forced to work with the lesser parts and get to your second read. That's been kind of a knock on him. I also think I do agree in that his pocket presence hasn't improved that much from California. It's definitely improved to a degree, but he does take hits that he doesn't need to. He does hold on to the football longer than he needs to. One thing that has helped him a ton in Indiana is that they've been able to run the football so effectively that he's not been forced to throw it 40 times in a game. I'm curious what his most passing attempts in a single game is. My guess would be like 32 maybe this year. So he's not been forced to throw it a ton, which means we don't know if he throws it in a volume amount, is he going to be more prone to interceptions? And then in terms of like an argument to not draft him, I think the biggest one for Las Vegas and the Raiders and Tom Brady and Mark Davis is going to be, do you view how do you want to view your offense and your roster? In that, do you want it to be Mendoza, Genty, Brock Bowers, and maybe you find a receiver somewhere else? Or do you want to take the haul of picks, someone trade? We're talking like Cleveland could trade up and easily draft Fernando Mendoza. Miami trading up from 11.
The
Mel
Cardinals
Kiper told us that Shedeur showed us everything we needed to see to have him be QB1 rolling in next season. So I think we can roll out the Browns there.
There's an argument for that, sure, maybe.
Cardinals.
Arizona, yes, would be a team that would absolutely trade up. But to get ahead of the New York Jets is really the argument there. Those three teams, I think, could make sense in terms of trading. And then you look for a comparable trade package, and you think of Carolina and Chicago. Carolina trading up from 9 to 1 to draft Bryce Young. Of course, they go terrible that next year, and it allows Caleb Williams to be the number 1 pick. But also, like, Chicago wouldn't have been without a quarterback. Next year, they would have been able to draft a guy like J.J. McCarthy. Bo Nix was in that draft. If they had been at 2 or 3, it's Drake May or Jaden Daniels. They very well could be in the same spot. And because of that, they're able to get DJ Moore and Luther Burden and Darnell Wright, who's an all-pro offensive tackle for them. That is like a comparable package for the 11th pick with Miami, or 6.
Yeah.
Was that was that 2 firsts and DJ Moore?
It was 2 firsts
and
and
there's some other
DJ
stuff,
Moore,
maybe a
and
third.
a second-round pick, which turned into Luther Burden.
Yeah.
It was a haul.
Yeah.
And it has helped out Chicago and their offense a ton. The thing is, though, on Las Vegas side, they already have Genty and Brock Bowers. What they really need is offensive line help, which is why I wouldn't mind trading.
Sure.
Because you can get Francis Maui Noah from Miami. You can get Spencer Fano from Utah and take an offensive tackle and then have a bunch of picks to work with. Because you're wondering, are you going to be competitive next year anyway? And so you might as well trade and have potentially 2 first-round picks next year, something that Cleveland was trying to do last year when the Jaguars traded up for Travis Hunter, and now they have 2 first-round picks.
Yeah, it makes sense. But even regardless, whoever makes that trade up is almost guaranteed to take Mendoza, because that's the whole reason you trade up. So Mendoza is sitting very pretty. Because even if there's obviously a spectrum of how you view Mendoza in terms of like quality of prospect, but I think almost anyone is going to say that he's clearly QB1 in this class. And so even if maybe you're not the highest on him, if you feel like this is the year you need to take a quarterback, he's kind of the guy that you have to try and go get. I wonder even if there's a world where the Raiders decide they don't want him, right? And so they're shopping around the pick, and the Jets even are like, we want to get our quarterback. We really like Mendoza, so we'll trade up from 2 to 1.
No, that's definitely a thing. Is you'll trade up to avoid someone else jumping
correct. And so then you just fall back one spot. You get a couple extra picks, and then you can take whoever you want at 2. I don't necessarily know if there's a tackle prospect you like at 2. It'd probably be like Ruben Bain or something.
You take a defender. Yeah. Take Arvo Reese.
Sure. But
Ruben Bain.
They have options. There's a reason you love to have the first overall pick, because you set the tone for the whole draft.
Yeah.
We've gotten way tangential here, so let's move on to the NFL, unless you have anything else you want to say about this.
I think I do want to touch one more thing on Miami. It was an incredible run for them to be here. They've really built that brand back up to a big degree. I wonder if this is going to be, they just missed out. Next year they'll be able to regroup, and maybe they'll be back in this conversation a la Notre Dame last year. They regrouped. You could argue maybe Notre Dame should have been in the playoff. They're 1 play away, especially from being in the playoff, 2 plays away from being a top 4 seed. Will that be the case for Miami? They're going to lose Ruben Bain. They're going to lose Carson Beck, but they'll keep Malachi Toney, and they'll keep Mark Fletcher. They don't have an answer at quarterback for their in terms of the transfer portal yet. Maybe it's Darian Mensah. Is this, are they out of the big conversation next year potentially and having a down year? Well, we saw this with Tennessee last year compared to this year. They're in the playoff. Everything's looking good, and then Nico Imaliava wants to transfer, and all of a sudden they're 8-4, and they're not even in the conversation to playoff. Their best win was here in Starkville.
Hey, that's a big win. That's a massive win. No, it's something I thought about too, because like you lose a lot off that offensive line. You lose both your edge rushers that were like keys to this team. You already mentioned Carson Beck, and we don't know what they're going to get at quarterback. Duke's fighting tooth and nail to not lose Mensah, taking it through the courts. And if they don't get Mensah, I'm interested to see what their next pivot is after that. So it is a big. This is kind of where it feels like we see how good of a coach Cristobal really is. If he okay, you got him there, now can you keep him there and push the right buttons to have sustained success? Because that's the hardest thing in this era is sustained success. You can kind of catch lightning in a bottle and almost get lucky. Making it all the way to the championship is not really getting lucky, but you can kind of luck into a good roster and hey, one of my edge rushers is 26 years old, sick. He's a grown man, and then the other guy's going to go top 5. But it's after they leave, what do you got?
Yeah.
Did you recruit well enough to back it up? So
the horror story. The horror story is Florida State. That's what you don't want.
Which, for his credit, they recruit from the high school level way better than Florida State has. So it may not happen. I also, this is an aside, and we can move on. 2013 Florida State is the highest. I didn't need to go look at their schedule because they also played one less game than Indiana did because it was just not the expanded playoffs.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's very impressive.
They were plus 556, if I'm not mistaken.
Wait, they didn't. They played 2 less, right? They only played 13 games. It was 2013.
2013 was the year they beat Auburn.
So no BCS.
That's right. Yeah. So they
maybe 14. Maybe 14.
They played 2 less. 14 because you would have played in the
ACC
ACC title game. Yeah, they played 2 less games and still hold that record.
Was it average margin of victory or total margin?
Total. They had a plus. It was plus 50 or more than Indiana, in 2 less games. So
hold up, I'm literally pulling it up right now.
And they won the Auburn game on a game-winning drive. So it's not like that one helped them that much. Same goes for Indiana, of course. They only won by 6. And Miami covered, and that means I got the last pick of the season correct, which means, of course, I'm carrying the most momentum going into next year. I did finish 3-0.
There's some troubles in Sanders' locker room. Some people asking for more money. I think that a couple of big time transfers has hit the portal. I have plenty of money to throw at people. I clearly didn't pay enough for my roster last year, so I'm sitting pretty.
Yeah, Florida State. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4 top 25 opponents in the regular season, and that was number 25 Maryland, who they beat 63-0, at number 3 Clemson, who they beat 51-14.
That was such a tough showing from Taj Boyd.
Number 7 Miami, who they beat 41-14, and then number 20 Duke, who they beat 45-7 in game 12, and then the very next week. Wait. Excuse me. For some reason, they have the same game listed twice, both in the regular season and then also as the ACC championship, I think.
Mm-hmm. They just double up and beat them by the exact same?
Yeah. Well, they didn't actually beat them by you see, it's the same date.
Oh.
So they just have the game listed twice, which I don't know what. Anyway. And then, they beat Auburn 34-31 to get to 14-0.
Yeah, so they just fried their schedule. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I knew they had a great team. I guess I just didn't realize that they were taking it to teams like that.
They scored 41, 62, 54, 48, 63, 51, 49, 41, 59, 59, back-to-back 59 3 weeks. And then they play Idaho, and they only dropped 80 against Idaho. 37 against Florida, and then 45 against Duke, and then 34 against Auburn.
Yeah, that's a pretty good showing from the
The
offense.
national championship, where they scored 34 points, was the lowest point score of the season, and only one of 2 times they scored less than 40.
I can confirm. I've seen it first person. That's what the Jimbo Fisher offense can really do for you.
Lord, I've seen what you've done for others. I only ask that you do it for me.
All right, let's move on to the NFL. Let's get into these divisional round matchups, which starts another great slate. Despite some bad QB play, we got some close games, some good games, and we'll get into this one to start it off. Josh Allen failed us, I feel like, as a podcast. I'm not going to lie. We talked about how much we were rooting for them. I said I was considering painting my face Bills colors. I did not do that. I'm really glad I didn't do that after this overtime loss. They lose to the Broncos 33-30. Bo Nix outplays Josh Allen. Josh Allen turns the ball over 4 times. He threw 3 picks and fumble. 2 picks and fumbled twice. So he turned the ball over 4 times. And that's kind of the backbreaker, honestly. A couple of times it felt like they were going to take momentum, and then he fumbles, he throws a pick. Even the crucial early in the game is James Cook fumble. They had the ball, and it felt like I think they were up 3, maybe looking to make it a 2-possession lead.
Yep.
And he fumbles the ball right back to the Broncos. And so the Broncos end up winning this game, but they immediately get hit with the bad news that Bo Nix broke his ankle, and so he's not going. And another Auburn legend will take the reins, and Jared Stidham. But y'all's thoughts on this game? What do y'all see?
Yeah, apparently it wasn't immediately. Like, I was listening to Check the Mic with Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson, and Sam was saying that Peyton did his post-game press conference, walked into his office, had a talk with one of his assistant coaches, I guess, and then walked back out and was like, oh, and by the way, I just found out Bo Nix is out for the season. Like, the press conference was over. Like, it's, it's kind of like the transfer portal or even high school commitments. Like, when you hear something, you don't believe it until, like, down to the very end. Like, I feel like Bronco fans are going to feel that way going forward about just games in general. Like, oh, I won't feel safe until the next day, like 24 hours later. Like, that's how I feel about, like, I won't feel safe about high school commitments until they're on campus. I feel like now Broncos fans might be scarred to be like, I won't feel safe until the game's been over for 48 hours.
Sure.
Like, that's, I feel like, the kind of trauma that would induce as far as fandom goes.
My favorite stat from this game is the Bills didn't punt. So you moved the ball pretty well, except for turning the ball over 5 times, and that'll cost you. But they didn't punt. The Broncos punted 4 times, and the Broncos still win.
Yeah, the first team in NFL history to score 30 points in a playoff game, not punt and lose. For me, I think you go down this game in a non-chronological order, and I think firstly I want to talk about the Brandon Cooks play, and I do want to start with, first of all, I have zero problem with the ruling on the field.
I think it's the correct call.
I think it should be ruled an interception. That because by the rule book, it makes a ton of sense. You think about the whole like survive the ground thing.
Yeah.
Brandon Cooks has to survive the ground there. He's not rolling out of bounds, so it's a little bit different there. But even still, like rolling out of bounds, you still have to survive the ground. So I'm okay with everything that was being ruled there.
Yeah, I got something to add because I actually feel pretty passionate about this. I love the ruling. I'm not even fine with it. I love it.
Yes,
because it can be a little inconsistent at times. You know how they call that, but it was the right call. And I'm sick and tired of receivers getting like just bodied by the DB, or the DB just like basically taking the receiver's lunch. But since the receiver's the receiver and the DB's the defensive player, the receiver just kind of gets bailed out of like, well, he had it for a second. And like I've seen it so many times, you know, they're fighting and it comes down and the DB comes up and he's holding the football, and then they're like, you know, oh no, it's a catch, or oh no, it was just incomplete. I'm just kind of tired of receivers getting bailed out, honestly, for like not protecting the football. And the DB, I feel like a lot of times makes, and sometimes the DB comes up holding the football and clearly, you know, they grabbed it 4 seconds after the play was over. Like it's not accurate.
Like the wide receiver just let go because he's like, I'm down. Like,
but I genuinely think there are some times where I'm like, I truly believe that the DB makes the play, the DB finishes the play, the receiver like gets beat, the receiver gets the ball ripped away from him, but because he's the receiver, there's like, no, it was a catch. So like I'm more than happy. Like Brandon Cooks just don't get big broed. Just you know, ball security is job security. So I loved it personally.
Yeah, what I'm not okay with though is 2 things with this. Firstly, is why is this play not looked at? Why is it not reviewed? Why is it not fully reviewed? It is literally in the rule book that all turnovers and scoring plays are subject to some review. Why is the one that is the most important in the entire game, the one that can cause such a disagreement with the public, such a disagreement between teams, why is this not looked at under the hood? Why does the referee not go take a look at this? Why doesn't New York take a deeper look at this? That is a huge issue that I have. For them to spend as much time as they do on some plays that are in the second quarter that have no meaning, why is this not just fully reviewed. It's overtime. It's 3rd and 10. And because it's literally a rule that in overtime all reviews are subject to the booth's discretion, the fact that Sean McDermott can't even challenge the flipping call is also stupid too. I think you should be able to challenge it and have another review. We've had instances this year where we've used expedited review. We've had the ruling on the field. They've changed it with the expedited review. We've challenged it, and the challenge changed the ruling of the expedited review to the ruling on the field originally. That has happened this year in the NFL. So why can't Sean McDermott challenge it?
Sure.
That's a huge
I think that's
problem
fair.
for me. My second issue is precedent. And I at first, like I said, I agree with the ruling on the field. It should be ruled that way. But when you have a play like you did in the Ravens-Steelers game 2 months ago where a ball is popped up, Rodgers secures the ball, has it ripped away from him as he's going to the ground, how can that be ruled possession for him and this not be ruled a catch for Cooks? It's literally the same thing. And then when you have a play literally last year in the AFC Championship game where Xavier Worthy has one hand on the football and Cole Bishop has the entire football, how is that ruled a catch for Xavier Worthy, but it's not ruled a catch here in this instance for Brandon Cooks? It's consistency there. When you set a precedent on a call like that, and this is all within one calendar year. This is not like going back deep into NFL history. When we've been told our entire lives when it comes to baseball, when it comes to football, tie goes to the runner, tie goes to the offense. Why is that not used for this call? Why do also those plays get extensive reviews? That's precedent right there. Those plays got reviewed for 5+ minutes. Both times we had to bring in our rules analysts just so they can agree with the call on the field because I don't know why they get paid anymore. Why does this one not get that full review? That's breaking precedent. Those are two things I have significant problem with. When you literally have rulings that are the exact same thing and you rule them possession for the offense and then you come here in this one and you change the ruling, albeit the correct ruling, they should have all been correct in the first place. It's breaking precedent. And I think it's so stupid, and it your heart breaks for Buffalo because that completely ends the game. It's a 3rd and 10 completion. They're in field goal range. Next score wins the game, and now they want to come and change precedent and not do an expedited or not do a full review, which is changing precedent. Both of those things are purely it's stupid. I hate that happened, and it shouldn't happen, and it can't happen in this game. It can happen week 17 between the 2-14 Browns and 2-14 Cardinals.
That game could have number 1 pick implications on the line.
Yeah.
Though. That could really
2-14
matter.
Browns
Chiefs
and the
and
6-11 Chiefs.
There you go.
Yeah, that works.
Whatever you want it to be, that can happen then. But when this is nationally televised, literally because it's on CBS, and all of America is watching this game, you can't have mistakes like this because it just puts so much tarnish on your league. You put when the officials are questioned in terms of their loyalties to teams, their way about doing things, and their calls, their judgment calls, it puts your sport into a ton of question. It hurts the fans. It hurts the sport. Chiefs' dominant run was great, and a large part of that was their play. But at the same time, there were also judgment calls, a ton of them, that went their way. It hurts your sport. It tarnishes the integrity of the game, and that's the most important thing. So I hate those two things about the play, in a play where I literally agree with the call on the field. Those two things can't happen. But all of that put aside, it shouldn't even be the biggest talking point because Josh Allen unfortunately lost in this game, and you can tell he understands that with the way that he reacted post-game compared to everybody else. Jack and I had an argument of why is Josh Allen so beloved. It's because he doesn't question officiating. He literally did not. He has perspective, and he knows what he can control in a game, and he failed at it. 5 team turnovers, 4 total for Josh. For me, I think the most impactful one was the first fumble by James Cook because it's 7-3. At that point in the game, they're driving. They literally go up 14-3.
Yeah.
The other 4 later in the game, you could argue they have more impact. But for me, I think momentum-wise, those 2 had the most impact. But the first fumble by James Cook takes 3 points off the board. They in field goal range at least. The Allen fumble at the end of the half directly leads to 3 points for Denver. The Allen fumble to start the second half directly leads to 3 points for Denver. And Allen, when he threw the first pick, was in field goal range, and it takes 3 points off the board. The last pick, I don't think it equates to anything by my estimation in terms of points, even though Denver scored off of that. So that's 12 points for sure. And that just can't happen in a playoff game. That is the reason you lose a game by 3 instead of win a game by 9. You take those two, you take all of the turnovers, especially, off the board. Buffalo wins by 2 touchdowns. They were the best team that day. They had 450 yards on an elite defense on the road with short rest. They had 6 days rest compared to Denver, who had 12 days rest. They were better on third down and great on third down in general. They were 10 for 15 on third down against Denver. Now, 4 of those were Josh Allen tush pushes.
Still counts.
But still counts. It's still dominant. They ran for 183 on the ground on the second-best run defense in the league, a week removed from them not being able to run the football at all against the best rush defense in the league. Allen throws for 3 touchdowns. They were more efficient in the red zone than Denver was. They had a 12-minute time of possession edge. But a culmination of what their season was held back by was shown again on Saturday, and that's turnovers. It's something we talked about all year. They had 3 against New England and a loss, 2 against Atlanta and a loss, 3 against Miami and a loss, 3 against Houston and a loss, and then 1 against Philly, the goofiest of them all, where Josh Allen fumbles the ball backwards 30 yards down the field, and it ends up in points for Philly. You change 2 of those games, you win the division. You change just the New England game in general, you win the division because you have the same record and a 2-0 head-to-head advantage.
Yeah.
You change 3 of those games to the number 1 overall seed. There's really only 1 game, I'd argue, this year where you could argue against that and say, oh, change 1 play, it changes the game, the week 1 against Baltimore. And so 5 games that you could just change if you just took away the turnovers. It was a failure of a season. It leads towards Sean McDermott being fired, rightfully so, in my opinion.
Do you think they also should have fired the GM?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I don't necessarily fully agree with Buffalo fans in terms of, they've failed on all of their draft picks, like literally every single one. No, like Cole Bishop has been great. Greg Rousseau has been really, really good. Khalil Shakir was a great find. And they have other guys that are starters for them that played critical snaps this year due to injuries. Now, you missed on Keon Coleman, sure. You missed on a few other guys, sure, but they've found enough draft picks.
Yeah, Keon Coleman's the biggest miss.
Absolutely. So I would have fired Brandon Beane as well. Instead, he gets promoted, and he'll decide on who's going to be the next head coach going forward as Sean McDermott gets fired. McDermott coached for 9 years, led them to the playoffs 8 times, was 8-8 in his playoff record. He was 90-55 as a head coach overall, and of course led them to the postseason for the first time in 16 years, the year before Josh Allen. So, there's argument for him to continue coaching there, but I think the biggest one is like, the only way you can argue that he could get to continue to coach is if you think eventually he's going to get them over the hump. And I think at this point it's pretty hard to argue that, and so I think it's worth taking the risk on someone else getting you over the hump than it is to continue with Sean McDermott. It feels like the definition of insanity, if you ask me.
Yeah.
What has cost Allen in pretty much every playoff game except this one against Cincinnati, and then his first playoff game has been the fact that their defense has given up 30-plus points.
Yep.
This one is included in that, although, I think 12 points were handed to them from their own offense. But
the defense didn't play very well, though, either, I would argue. Bo Nix was just chilling back there. The lack of pass rush was pretty evident for most of the game. But I agree he needed to be fired. It is funny because I feel like this season was probably one of his better coaching jobs. But it's like at this point, it's just been so long. It's time to move on. Even if maybe this one wasn't directly your fault, it's just how it goes. It's a results-based league, so got to get it done at some point. Well done, Denver. I guess we can pivot to the other side.
yeah,
You take care of home field advantage. You win the game. Maybe not the prettiest of wins. I mean, it went to overtime, but you're playing Josh Allen. It's kind of a scary sight. And not only were you playing Josh Allen, you come up with the win, but you like made him be the reason that the Bills lose. And so it's a job well done on that front. It sucks that Bo Nix goes down with the injury. One, because it kind of effectively ends your hopes of winning the Super Bowl. I guess you could say crazy thing has happened. I mean, Nick Foles himself was tweeting about how backup QBs have a good history against the Patriots in the playoffs.
Yep. And Jarrett Stidham has a good preseason career.
Shout out Jarrett Stidham with his good preseason career. But me as a non-fan, it just kind of sucks because now it's like we'll never truly know what this team could have done with their starting QB. It is just brutal. It is what it is, though. At the same time, like. There's no way around it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, you can't go give Bo Nix a new ankle.
Yeah, I'll say this. If there was any team in the playoffs that I think could overcome losing a quarterback, I feel like it was this team of the Texans, right? Just because the offense has not been what carried the team.
I trust in Drew Lock a lot, personally.
And all right, that's bold.
I'm going to make an argument for Mac Jones in a little bit, too.
Okay, that's fair. So maybe that's a bad take. That's a bad take by me.
They are fairly well equipped though to like lose a quarterback. It's not like they're the Bills where imagine if the Bills won this game and then it comes out Josh Allen broke his ankle.
He'd play.
We're literally like people are true. He popped his Achilles. Like he physically
he's rolling out there on a scooter.
He physically cannot play. He's so badly concussed. The doctors will have locked him in his room,
bubble wrap,
and aren't letting him out there.
No, yeah.
The people will be begging the commissioner to change the score and put someone else in the game.
Yeah.
So it's not that scenario. I do get what you're saying, but I think there's a couple teams that would be semi-equipped to do so.
I thought it was a great win for Bo, and that is. He played outstanding.
I think he was the best QB of this round.
Yeah, that's kind of. I think so too, and it's kind of inarguable.
Now there weren't tons of great QB performances, but he still was the best of the round. So shout out to him.
It's obviously devastating to suffer the ankle injury, but Denver. We talked about this in the preview. It was where are they going to get running game success? They didn't get any. 10 carries for 41 yards from their 2 running backs. Bo was far from efficient, but Sean Payton put him in very favorable spots in key moments, and he and they were able to take advantage of something they have all season. That's long moon balls that are either caught or force a PI. Of course, it leads to his game-winning drive where it had 50-plus yards of penalties. But it does speak to the confidence that you can have in that quarterback that he's going to throw those balls down the field, and they're not going to be intercepted. They're going to have really no fear of being intercepted. When Josh Allen pushed it down the field, he threw picks in this game. He threw 2 of 9
on deep balls, Josh Allen was.
Yeah, exactly. So Bo, even though they weren't completions, to have the confidence in him to go into that spot and make him throw the football down the field, speaks to their connection, him and Sean Payton. It's devastating to suffer the ankle injury, of course. But I thought he played great. I thought he answered to a lot of the haters. Now he's played 1 playoff game at home and 1 on the road. 1 was bad and 1 was a fine game for the most part. Didn't lose them the game by any degree. So I still think the jury's out. If we're going to use the Herbert language, anything's possible with him. Buffalo at one point in this game had a win probability of 83%. And that came in the same half, the second half, where Denver had a win probability of 90%. This game was unbelievably crazy.
All over the place. That's what turnovers will do, man.
Turnovers are insane. The 83% came when Buffalo had the ball first and 10 near the red zone, up 24-23. And then Denver had a 90% chance when Josh Allen fumbled it to start the second half. Sean Payton's now 5-0 in the playoffs off of bye. Denver's now won 14 of the last 15 at home. They added +3 to their sack differential, which is still the best in the league, sacking Allen 3 times, and Bo was perfectly protected the entire day. I'm not even sure if he was pressured more than 5 times in the entire game, and that's even with Buffalo blitzing a lot in this game. It's a great, great win for Denver. I do think they're very live next week against New England. I'll tell you, I don't care what the spread is. I'm going to bet them to cover. Given the way Drake May played this weekend in another game where he continues to drop the ball, literally. I do think it's really anyone's game in Denver next week. And then even looking forward to the Super Bowl, it's really anything's possible. No one expected what Nick Foles did. Now, Nick Foles did it over an extended run.
Sure.
Because Carson Wentz tore his ACL with like 3 or 4 weeks to go. And so that was way more impressive. But that also speaks to Jarrett Stidham could do something like that in 2 games. Sean Payton could cook up a good enough game plan in 2 games for Jarrett Stidham. Their defense could do enough in 2 games. So I do think Denver is still completely live doing the Super Bowl. They shouldn't be ruled out, especially with them getting to play
You know
at
what their
home.
odd shift was?
They shifted to plus 1,200.
Gotcha.
So I would imagine it plus 1,000 added on. I'm sure they were like plus 300, give or take.
Gotcha.
I think they're up to plus 1,200 right now.
Is that the worst odds?
It's
got to be
by
the worst.
far the worst
Yeah.
odds. The next 3 are Seattle is plus. I think Seattle's plus 150, and then Los Angeles and the Patriots are right there, like plus 240. So a significant gap between the 4 teams, but they're completely live. They get to play at home. It's a young quarterback and a first-year coach with this team, and Mike Vrabel. Very young team in New England. They haven't looked perfect. They've looked great defensively, but haven't looked perfect offensively. So I wouldn't rule them out. I do want to say on the record that if they make the Super Bowl, I'm more happy about them making the Super Bowl with Jarrett Stidham than I am with Bo Nix.
Fair.
And
that's crazy.
That might just be a hater take.
I
think it's a hater
absolutely
take, but
a hater take.
I don't hate the hater take. Let me say that.
Y'all a bunch of haters. That's all you are.
I mean, you should be a hater. You're a Chargers fan.
But I picked the Broncos to win the AFC West because I'm a ball knower.
We have proof that says otherwise.
I'm ready for the next game.
Yeah, let's move on to the next game. This was the kind of letdown of the slate. Raheed Shaheed takes the opening kick, Saints legend, I should add, for JP. Takes the kickoff back for a touchdown, and they could have won just off of that with how much the Seahawks or the 49ers scored. The Seahawks ended up winning 41-6. Couple stats for you. 49ers, 0 of 3 on 4th down. They turned the ball over 3 times. The Seahawks don't turn the ball over. Just really smooth sailing for the Seahawks, which is huge considering like the health of Sam Darnold and also just Sam Darnold's track record in big meaningful games isn't the best. So the fact that they could just kind of coast was massive. They didn't do anything crazy offensively. They just kind of let the defense handle it. They ran the ball pretty well. K9 had a great day. That's going to have to continue because it came out Charbonnet tore his ACL, so he's done. It's maybe what some people have wanted to see for a while now is a K9 dominated backfield. There is now no Charbonnet to take touches, so you're going to get to see that. We'll see if he can take advantage of it. But yeah, just nice and easy breezy for the Seahawks. Like I said, 41-6 victory over the 49ers. Very impressive season for the 49ers, all things considered. The dam did just finally burst. They didn't have the juice to get it done. Y'all's thoughts on this game, though?
Yeah, I think for me the biggest one is, of course, Shaheed's play to open the game. So much is... Well, let me start with this. My first biggest one is what a joy to watch Seattle hosting a playoff game.
Sure.
Very nostalgic. And it was a joy to watch that fan base, that environment. I can't wait for the NFC Championship against the Rams. It's going to be electric. Second one is so much is made of trades, and especially like deadline deals. You think of the Sauce Gardner deal earlier this year for two first-round picks. People are too quick to hate on moves. And Shaheed, this year, prior to the trade, had 44 catches, 489 yards with New Orleans, and that was with, little Spencer Rattler. Since that trade, he had just 15 catches for 188 yards. But contenders make these moves not for huge impacts, but for slight edges on the margins. And
they make it for the playoffs as well. Right?
Absolutely.
They don't care about the regular season.
This trade failed is such an obvious reaction with the way he is statistically looked if you just watch box scores, but you don't make that move for significant production. As you said, you make it for key production in the playoffs especially. But even in critical moments this year, a key 31-yard run and a 58-yard punt return touchdown in the first match or the second matchup with the Rams on Thursday Night Football that propelled a comeback, and it's the reason they're the 1 seed, them winning that game. And then a second half opening kickoff return for a touchdown on the road at Atlanta when it's 6-6 at halftime, and people are wondering, Seahawks, are you guys frauds? And then this play, the opening kickoff return touchdown against San Francisco to start the divisional round. That is why you make a deal like this, and that's why these kinds of deals can have huge impacts, because they make you better on the margins. They make you better. This move just made them better in special teams, and they've been electric in special teams, and they already were before. Like that, they were not bad before. Torrey Horton had two punt return touchdowns.
Yeah,
maybe one punt return, one kickoff return touchdown before the Shaheed deal, but Shaheed makes 3-4 impactful, critical plays, and it has changed the course of their season in the critical moments. That I think that's the biggest takeaway for me. Niners respond to that. Like, I don't get that they immediately get the ball downfield past the 50-yard line, and then they run an option play into the boundary with Kyle Juszczyk and Christian McCaffrey. And if there's one thing Seattle was going to do in this game is they were going to key on CMC. He was literally like the only weapon available, although some San Francisco podcast hosts would disagree, some saying that if Ricky Pearsall were to have played in this game, San Francisco would blow out Seattle. There is someone on the record who did say that. Ricky Pearsall did play, and San Francisco did not blow out Seattle.
Would you like to guess Ricky Pearsall's stat line?
0 for 0.
With 2 targets.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, if he had more catches, they would have blown him out.
Oh, yeah. Fair.
That's what he meant.
If he had the stat, 8 catches, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, it's a different game.
Agreed. Crazy that they
and
say
2
that,
pick sixes.
For them to run an option play into the boundary, and by into the boundary I mean they were already on the right hash, and you run it to the least amount of space on the field with Kyle Juszczyk and CMC. CMC they're already going to target on. It's Seattle's defense. They're the fastest in the league, the best at preventing yards after the catch, and they're damn sure going to prevent the yard after the toss on the option. And everyone's eyes are going to be on him, and with the way Purdy ends up playing all day in this game, I thought was a good game from him. He was mobile, able to escape, create more plays just like he did in Philly.
He was the leading rusher for the 49ers.
Yeah, I think you give him some chance over Christian McCaffrey on that play, and I thought it was a huge turning point in the game. Then Darnold turns around, makes a throw to Kupp after being sacked, and it's a 20-yard throw across the hashes to outside the numbers. So he threw like a 35-yard pass. This is their first offensive drive. From that moment, it was like, oh, Sam Darnold's chilling. His oblique isn't that hurt because he just made one of the best throws we had seen that to start the weekend so far. And then he makes an excellent throw rolling left to JSN for the touchdown. Game's pretty much over from there. For San Francisco to be told that Brock Purdy is going to lead your team in rushing, as Jack said, Jake Tunges, however you want to say it, is going to lead your team in receiving. Not to mention his last catch comes with half of the second quarter still to play. I think it's fair to say that this game was over, but really as soon as it started with the Rashid Shaheed catch. Seattle this year was one of the best teams in the league in limiting yards after the catch, and they only gave up 89 yards last night against San Francisco in Week 18. They only gave up 50. So Seattle, again, had an amazing performance. They're going to have to do that again. Or they're going to have to do that in general against the Rams, because the last time they played them, Stafford threw for 457 yards. And I think it was either 3 or 4 touchdowns. Puka Nacua had an amazing day. They didn't even have Devontae Adams in that game. I feel for, you mentioned it, I feel for the K9 fantasy owners. I think they're just in shambles. His best performance of the season is in this game.
It doesn't even matter, man. I am a K9
but for
owner.
next year, though, this is a sign of
They'll
things to come.
they'll draft someone in the 6th round that will inexplicably split carries with him. Le'Veon Moss in Seattle is going to be splitting carries with K9.
And then my biggest takeaway from this game was before I even knew the result of the other one. my final takeaway, I should say, not my biggest again, but it's an enormous advantage now for Seattle. They get the extra day of rest, and their opponent had to battle it out in the freezing cold, and I didn't know at the time, but they also had to battle out in overtime and spend so much energy, and now they have to fly all the way back across the country to Seattle, this time being Los Angeles, flying back to LA, and then going up to Seattle, as it should be, because they're the number 1 overall seed. This is why getting the 1 seed is such a tremendous advantage, and it's going to be for Seattle and Denver this coming weekend. But I think it's going to be even more so of an advantage, and it could really be a lean towards Seattle now just playing their second game, a game where they got to pull their starters midway through the fourth quarter. Rams have been in a competitive battle already with the Carolina Panthers, which you never want to be in one of those. And then they have that big win on the road in Chicago. I can't wait for the trilogy. I sent this stat earlier in the chat. This is my own research. This can be tweeted if you'd like.
I'll have to go in and reread it and figure out the best way to post it.
Seattle is the first team to ever play 2 divisional opponents in the playoffs since the NFL expanded to 32 teams. They're also the first team since 1997-98. The 1997 season is what it would be called, to play 2 divisional opponents in the playoffs. When the Tampa Bay Bucks, beat the Lions and then lost to Lambeau Field against the Packers the next week. Yes, Tampa Bay was in the same division as the Detroit Lions.
That's why I didn't tweet it, is because I got hung up on that. I was like, why was Tampa Bay in the same division as the Green Bay Packers and Detroit Lions?
Well, also for many years, the Atlanta Falcons and the New Orleans Saints were in the same division as the St. Louis Rams and the San Francisco 49ers for literally like 20 years. So divisions were weird before they expanded 32. They'll also look to be, if they are to beat the Rams, the first team since 1985 and the 1986 playoffs to beat 2 divisional opponents in the playoffs, when the Pats won on the road against the Jets and then won on the road against the Dolphins in the AFC Championship game. So kind of unprecedented. It speaks to the dominance that the NFC West has had this year.
Yeah.
And now Seattle will look to be on top of that division once again in their 2 playoff games. Y'all any thoughts on this game?
No.
I mean, do we want to talk about? Do we say anything about for San Francisco? It's just going to be healthy next season.
Yeah, I touched on it at the top. It's that. I think they had a fine season. Like you feel pretty good going forward. You did just lose Saleh, so like, how does that impact
for the second time? Right, that was his second stint there.
Yeah, because he was praised so much for what he was able to do defensively, given the guys that were on that unit, especially down the stretch, so many injuries. So how do they replace him? But also, like, how do you fix this injury issue? Because it's kind of become a bit of a theme. Is it an issue like with training habits, rehab? Like or do you just have too many injury-prone guys in the building? Are guys too old? Do we need to try and get younger? I think that's kind of what you got to look at. But it's not a failed season, I would say.
No, absolutely not. They won, 11, 12 games? I mean,
12, I believe.
It was a great season. I would say it was a great season, or it was a good season when you take into context what was going on as far as injuries. It was a great season. They were were they in contention for the 1 seed, like, in the final, 2 or 3 weeks?
They played for it in the final game and lost.
So I think I would call it a great season, personally, but it is an unfortunate end. And now I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Brock Purdy, I think, has kind of silenced the doubters as far as being game manager goes. He's had a couple of really good games, elevating the offense. Maybe not silence the doubters, but you feel like you're in a good spot going forward.
Yeah.
You get Brandon Ayuk back healthy, ideally. George Kittle, you probably won't get back healthy. He's in his 30s and popped his Achilles a week ago, so I don't know what the timeline for that will be, but I don't have a lot of confidence about him coming back and playing meaningful snaps in 2026.
Well, they talked about how he actually ruptured his Achilles higher up, and for some that's better. I don't know why it's better. I'm not a physical therapist or a doctor, but the rehab's better. It's easier rehab.
Okay.
That may not mean he's back for the next season because he's an older guy.
His timetable for return right now would be November.
Yeah.
If it went a normal Achilles.
Yeah.
Because that's 11 months or 10 months, I should say. And then you, of course, hope that he could do it quicker. Brock Purdy played really well this year, and And given the circumstances that he was in, I do think he kind of pushed away the notion a little bit that he needs his superheroes to win games.
Sure.
Yeah.
To be efficient in games. This year, Brock Purdy had a 69 completion percentage, 276 total yards per game, 7.4 yards per pass, a 1.6 touchdown to turnover ratio, and a passer rating of 97. When you compare that to Mac Jones had a 67 completion percentage, a 252 total yard per game, 24 less, same yards per pass, 7.4, a 1.5 touchdown to turnover ratio, and a 2.4 difference in passer rating, 95, flat for Mac Jones. Oh, wait, I'm lying to you. Flip the two. Mac Jones this year had the better completion percentage, 24 more total yards per game, the same amount of yards per pass, a 1.6 touchdown to turnover ratio compared to 1.5, and a better passer rating. Mac Jones was 5-3, and Brock Purdy was 8-3. Both essentially had the same weapons throughout the most of the season because Brock Purdy got hurt in week 1, and Mac Jones had to work with no Kittle for a ton of that, Ricky Pearsall getting hurt. So while he has gone away from the notion of I don't think he necessarily needs the superheroes to be great, he is not $50 million better than Mac Jones was this year. And so I don't think he's got away from the notion of that
Overpaid.
he's a system guy, overpaid, that it's Kyle Shanahan's system that is boosting him so well. He has made incredible plays. His 2-game stretch of the 5 touchdowns in both games against Chicago and Indianapolis were great. But Mac Jones had better numbers this year.
Maybe Mac Jones is just that good. Maybe someone needs to give Mac Jones
Also, a
Him and
potential
Malik
point.
Willis.
a ton of money.
If you want to die on that hill, go ahead.
I did see someone tweet today. They were like, someone asked who is QB2 in this year's draft class, and someone quote tweeted and said Malik Willis.
I think Brock has gotten away from the superhero notion, but I don't think he's necessarily got away from the game management one. So I wouldn't say it's just get healthy. You can't trade him because of his contract, but you are in that spot where, maybe you do want to invest in bringing back Mac Jones and bringing in a backup quarterback, whether it's Malik Willis, or drafting a quarterback.
Mac Jones may be too pricey. We're going to find out.
Yeah, in the first 3 rounds, because Brock does get hurt. He has gotten hurt.
That's the biggest issue for me is he's not durable.
Yeah, the past 2 years he's gotten hurt. He hasn't been entirely durable, as Jack said. He played 11 games this year. Last year he played, if I'm not mistaken, it was either 10 or 11 as well. And he was not good in a ton of last season either, and still got paid. So I don't think it's necessarily just health problems for them. I maybe go ahead and get rid of the power plant, even if it has no physiological difference on whether or not these guys are getting hurt. But there is some kind of bad mojo, clearly, whether it's CMC sacrificing people, whether it's him showing up to a Warriors game last night and,
Down goes Jimmy.
Jimmy Butler tears his ACL. Something seems to be occurring there.
Yeah.
Whether you believe in, ghost, religion, jinxes, whatever, you're superstitious or you're a little stitious, I do think you get rid of the power plant and try and get rid of that kind of notion.
I think it'll be easier to move the stadium than move the power plant. And
Yes.
it's very easy.
So
Bizarre in the chat, you just build a Faraday cage around the plant, which welcome in Bizarre. That's there's a thought. Yeah, there's a thought.
What's the Faraday cage?
It's just like it. So like the electrical power plant, and it's like the current. So it's just like it's blocking the currents.
Okay. I'm looking at his contract. It says it's a void. Well, actually, no, 2026. So yeah, he's under contract for 2026.
That's huge. So you're gonna have Mac back. I
That
didn't
is
know
massive. Maybe you consider starting him, is the argument there.
Imagine we get the Schefter report, like in open QB battle going into camp. It's going to be Brock's job. You don't pay a guy $50 million.
Yeah. You can't do that.
He's been nowhere near bad enough for you not to play him because, like we just said, he's proven to be pretty good this year.
Yeah.
Maybe not $50 million worth.
And I was looking to see like a opponent by opponent breakdown. Like, did Jones face a lighter part of the schedule as opposed to Purdy? But Jones still had to play at Los Angeles.
And he won that game.
He did win that game in overtime. Purdy had to face Jacksonville. He had to play Seattle twice, I believe.
He did.
Yes, he played Seattle twice.
3 if you count the playoff.
3 if you count the playoffs.
Which
yep.
Bizarre does bring up in
He
the chat.
did have to play Chicago. Had to play Indianapolis, but this was the back end of the season, so they weren't as good. But then you look at Jones, and Purdy had to play Jacksonville, but Jones had to play Los Angeles, Houston, and then Los Angeles again. So he played Los Angeles twice in Houston. So I would still say that Jones had the easier stretch of those 3 games, but Purdy also played more games, so more opportunities for tough opponents. But that was just something I was thinking about because he pointed out that Brock Purdy played Seattle 3 times. So there's that to be considered. Purdy also had to play Philly. When you just think about the yards per game and stuff you're talking about, like the context of which opponents they faced.
I think at this point it's like Brock Purdy played well enough this season that there's no. The door's not closed, and like he's being paid too much money for San Francisco to win, but it's still kind of a question, I would say.
I
he
think
extended that.
Even if you do try to put context in it, he's still not $50 million better than
Correct.
Mac Jones was this year, or however much the cap difference is. So I do still think that there is some open debate there, and he very well could be in, a similar spot if he has a season like he had last year, where he's being talked about like with Tua, where like
Not a spot you want to be.
Yeah, not a spot you want to be. You may just they're not going to cut Tua because they don't want to go the Russell Wilson route, but you could go the Russell Wilson route and take all the dead cap space where, like Denver, it's not well known because no one really pays attention to it because Denver's playing well, but Denver's paying Russell Wilson more money than they are paying every single one of their offensive weapons, including Bo Nix.
Yep.
So,
Sometimes it works out.
It can be detrimental. Sometimes it works out for you. Denver's, of course, hit on a ton of great draft picks. So I wouldn't rule out Brock Purdy going down the Tua Russell Wilson route. Maybe not next year, but the following year.
Sure.
I say all that to say I don't think it's necessarily just get healthy. I do think maybe you need to make some decisions there. Keeping Mac Jones would be critical. But how easy is it going to be for teams to offer draft picks for Mac Jones, make trades for Mac Jones? Quarterbacks do get traded.
Yep.
And Mac could be a very valuable piece maybe on draft night for you. You maybe don't consider trading him away. And I do think...
Is he someone that a team like the Vikings would go after?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
A team. What were the other teams? I forget we mentioned.
The Colts.
The Vikings, the Colts. That was one. There was a third one that was a team that had the roster.
I think
the Steelers, though, I forget what they're doing.
Atlanta could very well consider it with
No
Michael
shot,
Michael
man.
Penix tore his ACL.
But I feel like you're right.
There's
But
not
you
a
already have
guarantee.
Kirk. You already have Kirk. So
Yeah.
you're rolling with Kirk or
I would
Mike.
love for them to start Kirk Cousins, but I wouldn't advise starting Kirk Cousins.
The roster's
don't
not
think-
good enough for them to invest in a third quarterback to try and win games now. In my opinion,
What if they only had to send a third or
Yep,
a second
Steelers.
round pick? The Steelers was one. Yes, that is definitely one we've discussed.
It's a substation, Tucker, not a power plant. I misspoke.
So I do think it is
nuclear reactor.
There are going to be teams that would like to have Mac Jones as a quarterback for them, even a full-time quarterback for them. Denver would trade for Mac Jones in a heartbeat right now for this coming game in the AFC Championship. So,
Sure. There will be a market. It just depends on what they want to do because
I need that one Reddit rule where it's like Jameis Winston is on nobody's roster. He's just he sits at an airport, and if anyone gets injured, he immediately flies and plays for that team. I need Jameis on the Broncos. I need he's on the Giants right now.
Mm-hmm.
I need them to drop him, and I need the Broncos to claim him from waivers.
I maybe would rather roll with Jarrett.
San Francisco going to have the 27th pick in the draft. So yeah, quarterback probably off the board entirely there.
Well, yeah, you're just not taking it. I mean, that's
know.
that. No, you're rage baiting.
I do think maybe a second or a third round pick, considering if you did want to
No.
trade Mac Jones, not to for a backup. I'm looking for a backup.
If you trade Mac Jones, sure, there's a chance. I thought you were saying just for the
no.
the fun of it.
No.
All right, let's move on to this next game.
Hold up, I have a bit of breaking news. It concerns Bryce Young, JP. Bryce Young threw 4 more touchdowns in 2024 than he did in 2023, and then he threw 8 more in 2025 than he did in 2024. So if he keeps this up, in 2026 he will throw 39 touchdowns.
Okay.
In 2027 he will throw 71 touchdowns. In 2028 he will throw 135. then 263 touchdowns in 2029. In 2030, it's 519 touchdowns. And then I imagine 2031, he gets his first Super Bowl at 1,031 touchdowns.
Probably so.
Retires in 2032 at 2,055 touchdowns. So just keep that in mind going into next season as we preview the Carolina Panthers. There is a trend so far that is measurable.
That'd be great for my Ted McMillan stock in the keeper league.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't say how many. It doesn't say how many he receives.
Yeah, but you
I
got to
would
think as the
imagine.
best receiver, he's catching a good chunk of those.
Unless they realize the Panthers realize they have magic and they just trade away all the weapons and they're throwing. They bring back Kelvin
Thielen.
Benjamin, and they bring back was it Kelvin Benjamin, the one that moved to tight end?
Yeah.
Yeah, they bring back just those guys because it just doesn't matter.
Funny enough, we mentioned 2013 Florida State earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Winning touchdown was to Kelvin Benjamin in that game
Well,
Really
against Auburn in the national championship.
interesting. Isn't it true that Auburn? Well, I guess the Auburn team would have been the year before with Cam Newton, or 2 years.
Cam Newton was 2011, I think.
Yeah. That they had 0 first-round picks on that team besides him. Is that right? It was something ridiculous like that where he carried that
I don't know off
team.
the top of my head, to be honest.
I mean, he did carry that.
That
team,
might be
though.
a Tucker question with his known Auburn fandom.
Yeah. his
That's crazy.
anti-Auburn fan.
He might about to say he might unsubscribe if we don't correct
His
that.
known Auburn hating.
There, yes.
I mean, it's like you probably know a lot about Ole Miss because you hate Ole Miss.
oh
and
yeah,
you're a
I could
State
tell you
fan.
all about Dante Moncrief, Laquan Treadwell.
Shout out to LeCon. I literally a name I was thinking of not 10 seconds ago.
That's crazy. I actually got had the opportunity to go to one Egg Bowl when I was in, I think, junior high. Maybe I think it was before high school. I was probably 13 at the time, and I believe Dante Moncrief was still there. So I guess I don't remember. That would have been 2013, probably 2012.
Sure.
And I remember being in the stadium and they played the feed Moncrief, feed. And I was kind of okay, as a 12 or 13-year-old, I was just jealous that they had a player whose name rhymed with feed. Because I was I want to be able to chant feed somebody.
It's finally happened. Andrew Jones has been elected to the Hall of Fame.
Congrats.
The Braves' long national nightmare is over.
My mom works at the same gym as him.
That's fire.
Cool.
Has she said hi before?
I
Thank
don't
you for
think
your
so.
service.
She should say that.
Yeah.
I'll get her on that. She listens to the pod.
Yeah, I need you to tell him thank you for your service. And that service was patrolling the Braves center field and Turner Field, and then obviously wherever he visited, just to perfection for about a decade, along with the power he brought to the Braves lineup.
I thought it was a typo for a second. Andrew Jones, because it's DRUW, and it reminded me of the Bills and the head coach's admiral job. Did you see that, JP?
Yes.
When they announced Sean McDermott was being
Really well
fired,
done by
they were
them.
like, "Oh, he did an admiral job while he was here." Nick Fairley was a first-round pick at defensive tackle, but he was a bust. That 2010 team didn't have a single NFL rushing, receiving, or passing touchdown that wasn't Cam Newton.
Passing yard.
Or passing yard. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's crazy.
That is insane.
Well, ridiculous. So I was right that offensively they had a little bit of talent. I mean, they had a first-round pick, or defensively, excuse me. Offensively, they had nothing. That's crazy. All right, next game up.
Let's move on to we can talk about the. Sorry, Chromie. C.J. Stroud is possibly one of the smelliest, streakiest NFL postseasons of all time. Justin Herbert, in my mind, is he's like the Boys meme of the guy where he's smiling in the theater or whatever. I've not seen the Boys, but I've only seen the meme. Basically being wait, I've done this, but I'm in the clear.
Yeah.
Because C.J. Stroud, first NFL postseason history.
That's big.
5 fumbles, 5 interceptions.
It's huge for the Chargers.
Historic stuff from C.J. Stroud. I know he didn't have Nico Collins in this game. Doesn't matter. You can't do this. Your defense plays really well, but it doesn't matter because you turn the ball, you throw 4 picks, one of them being a pick 6, and the Patriots win 28-16. Very disappointing because it truly felt like this Texas defense was good enough to at least go to the Super Bowl, and that C.J. Stroud had cracked the code down the stretch of being okay, I don't have to be great, but I just have to do just enough to, protect the football, find my weapons a couple times. We'll let Woody Marks butt his head against the post 20 times a game, 15 times a game for 50 yards. And that all went away. He couldn't protect the football, and that's kind of the real reason they're going home. But y'all's thoughts on this game, though?
Yeah, Stroud definitely failed the defense, and they definitely failed the defense. New England had one drive longer than 6 plays in this game.
That's insane.
10 plays and a punt.
It wasn't even a scoring drive.
Yeah, they had 4 drives, I should say, 3 drives that were 6 plays, meaning they picked up 1 to 2 first downs. They were absolutely dominant for much of this game and much of this season. I think the biggest question people had was like, oh, why aren't you putting in Davis Mills? Should we have benched C.J. Stroud? Stroud throws the 4 picks. He throws them all 4 in the first half. For me, the argument for benching him was really hard because I think of specifically a couple things. One, even with the way Davis Mills played this year, I did think that Stroud deserved the chance to start the second half. And then I think of, what was one quarterback that threw 4 picks in the first half and then responded and answered pretty well? Oh, yeah, Trevor Lawrence against Justin Herbert, where he threw 3 picks in the first quarter and was able to respond from that game. He returned to form. He wins that game. And that was in a much tougher circumstance because he's down 27-0 because of those 4 picks. So a much different score, much more manageable of a spot to be in. Houston is only trailing by 11 points going to halftime. And so Stroud deserved to start at least the second half. And then he leads a drive down the field. It unfortunately stalls out in a field goal. It's an 8-point game. Okay, he deserves the next drive. Drake May immediately fumbles. They have the ball in great territory. Woody Marks fumbles, sadly, and they don't score any points. They force a 3-and-out. And so Stroud, with how he had already played the first 2 drives of the second half, he deserves the third drive. He leads him down for a field goal, and it's a 5-point game. I get he was terrible in the first half, but you give him the opportunity to start the second half, and he responded in the second half with the way he played. He played much better, albeit a very low bar to overcome in the second half than he did in the first half. So I don't think benching him really would have been – I didn't think it was much of a decision at any point for DeMeco Ryans and crew. I get it. Davis Mills was good this year. He was 3-0 in games that he started. Sure. One of those wins was against Buffalo, and a win where they turned over Josh Allen 3 times in that game and were dominant defensively all night. Another one of those wins was against Trevor Lawrence, and it was a shocking, loss for Jacksonville. It wasn't that Davis Mills.
Yeah, it was a collapse by Jacksonville.
Yeah, Davis Mills didn't necessarily tear them apart. So I did think Stroud deserved to start the second half. I didn't think he deserved to be benched. I also don't think, his career is over. I think for the Texans this year, you think of the loss of Joe Mixon for the entire season. He didn't play a single snap. He was a dominant rusher last year. The trading of Laramie Tunsil, C.J. Stroud did not do that. It reared their heads, and it finally resulted in a loss. They had won 11 in a row coming into this game. Their running game, again, was terrible. 18 carries for 31 yards from their running backs. They could not run the ball for much of the entire year. And to think of, if I am thought of on the show as the most logical thinker when it comes to thinking about trying to put things in perspective. And to think of the last 3 years for Houston where a rookie year, C.J. Cooks, he wins the playoff game. They lose to the Ravens, the number 1 seed on the road. Then they go all out. They add weapons for him. They give him Stephon Diggs. They get him Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
It ends in a playoff win against Joe Flacco and then a playoff loss against the number 1 seed Kansas City Chiefs who go to the Super Bowl. And then the weapons are gone this year. Diggs is gone. Mixon doesn't play a single snap. Laramie Tunsil is traded away. You have injuries to Nico Collins throughout the year. Tank Dell broke his leg last year. Doesn't play a single snap this year. C. Kirk is your best receiver in 2 playoff games. And the defense carries them all season. Stroud really struggled a ton this year. But honestly, who wouldn't have with what he had offensively? They had just fired their offensive coordinator at the end or middle of last year.
Yeah.
And he had, led them to a great offense his rookie year. And now Stroud, he has to say in a presser that he doesn't think that his career, and he speaks in the third person of, I don't think C.J. Stroud's career is over yet. Like, I don't think there's any need to panic. I do think people are panicking a little bit, and that Stroud maybe isn't the answer. Maybe, he shouldn't have talked so much so early, or making fun of his warm-up routine, the fact that he uses a basketball and a baseball bat and whatnot, and then we're making fun of, like, last year when he beat Caleb Williams on Sunday Night Football, he's going up and talking to Caleb and saying, hey, fix these things. You'll be back in the spot that I'm in right now. And their careers have just gone a different trajectories since then. Like, I just don't think there's any need to panic, because who would give up on a quarterback that made the postseason and won a playoff game every single year in his first 3 years? I don't care what you want to say, like how those results happened. He and Josh Allen are the only quarterbacks in the league right now to have a streak of such nature. If Mahomes didn't get hurt, he would be the only other one as well. So I don't think Stroud's career is over. I think the book is still to be written on him. He has 6 playoff starts already, so he's got a ton of playoff experience. We aren't even into the spot of, we are going to decide this offseason now whether or not to pick up his 5th-year option.
Yeah.
We hadn't even gotten that far. He's already started 6 playoff games, so I get it. He was terrible in this game and in the Steelers game, but I don't think it's like, who wouldn't be bad in those scenarios with those weapons?
He had the worst. Yeah, I think he had the worst supporting cast in the playoffs, pretty easily. And if you were expecting him to cook in this game, I think you were asking him to do something that he's just simply not. Like, I agree with acting like C.J. Stroud's not going to start next year, which I received a text from my brother-in-law, Grant, that someone basically told him that D'Amico Ryans was going to get fired and C.J. Stroud was going to be the starter next year. This guy was a Cowboys fan, Jersey Mike's employee, so shocker that he's going to say that, right? But at the same time, I definitely think the expectations maybe got a little too high for C.J. Stroud after his rookie year. And so now we've come down to this point of, like, which is, with given how good the defense is, it's all they need of, like, can we just get this guy a solid run game and have his weapons stay healthy and then let him go from there? Because realistically, who he had, like I just said, we shouldn't have expected great things in this game. Is that an excuse to throw 4 picks? No, not at all. Especially some of the picks were just awful. But he just wasn't dealt a winning hand, right? So I agree. It's insane to be like, his book in the NFL, the final chapter was just written with that game. It's crazy talk.
And he is getting tarnished a ton because they have a great defense, but Drake May shouldn't, be void of criticism for the turnovers that he had in this game.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams is not going to be void of the turnovers that he had. Of course, Josh Allen is not going to be voided of the turnovers that he had, and it feels like a ton of it is being put on CJ. But that again, I also want to reiterate what you said, and that it doesn't excuse the turnovers that he had in the first half or in the Steelers game whatsoever.
I'm just going to read what Crummy said in the chat because I think it puts it really well. I'm not expecting him to go win me a game like I am Josh Allen. I am expecting him to not randomly launch the ball in the air like on the pick 6. I think that's fair.
Yeah, it's a fair request.
Yeah, pivoting to the Patriots side, it's really interesting, right? Because now they've put together back-to-back really good defensive performances, and they're about to go play the Bo Nixless Broncos team. There's a chance that they end up in the Super Bowl, and it's like we don't really know if their defense has actually played fantastic or if it's the fact you played serial playoff choker Justin Herbert, deer in headlights C.J. Stroud, and then Jarrett Stidham on your route to the Super Bowl. At some point you're shutting down an NFL offense. You still deserve some credit, but we won't really know if that's actual domination or if they just kind of faced a very stoppable force week in and week out in the playoffs, which is very Patriots of them.
Yeah, to speak to that, they've given up just 10.5 points per game, 9.5 points per game in the 2 games. Of course, 6 turnovers forced in the 2 games. This is something that they struggled in a ton this year. And another thing they struggled in was I think it was bottom 3 in terms of allowing touchdowns in the red zone. You think to the Chargers game, Chargers have 2 drives, first and goal from the 10 and first and 10 from the 11. They score 3 points on those 2 drives. And the same thing goes for Houston in this game. They get down there and they're forced to kick field goals. They're forced to. It's the bend don't break, even in spots where they were bending, and so a ton of credit to them in the way that they've shown up defensively. Drake May, of course, has not played even remotely close to what he played in the MVP caliber year that he had, and yet they've won 2 playoff games. That could go 2 ways in terms of, it means he's going to cook at some point. But he could play Denver and Seattle the next 2 rounds and have 2 equally bad games or worse games than he's had in the other 2. So I wouldn't. Some Patriot fans are using that, my brother specifically, and as an argument towards New England going forward. But they've done, at least to some degree, what they weren't expected to do. And so I do push back on the people that say, fraud run, they haven't been tested. Well, as bad as Justin Herbert has been in the 2 playoff games prior, they also held Justin Herbert to 3 points.
3 points is impressive no matter who you're facing.
Absolutely. And as bad as Stroud was last week, and as bad as he was in this game, they held that offense to 16 points. They forced those turnovers. They had so many moments where, the first stat I read for this game, they had 1 drive longer than 6 plays, meaning that their defense kept being forced out there and put in critical moments, and they were able to answer in critical moments and force field goals. I do think there is a ton to be said that this defense has played really, really well. Milton Williams has been worth every penny that they paid him in a contract that people thought was terrible. Christian Gonzalez and his return with Carlton Davis, who's had an up-and-down career. They got some weapons defensively and some weapons offensively that haven't shown really even yet. So this is a team they deserve to be in the AFC Championship game.
100%.
They have been one of the best teams all year. It's funny to think this playoffs was going to be so open. It really could be anyone's game. But in reality, in the AFC, it's been the 2 best teams this year from a record perspective all year. And in the NFC, it's been the 2 best teams the entire year. And they are both in the championship games in both sides. So it really is the best 4 teams available. We felt that coming into the division round. It was already the best 8 teams available. So I don't think you should, not saying you, but the public should say, fraud, Patriots. It's a talking point. If they beat Jarrett Stidham and then they play Sam Darnold in the Super Bowl and he throws 5 picks or something, it's certainly a talking point. But every championship run is hard, and you're going to need lucky breaks. You're going to need things to go your way. You're going to need to play an opponent who's hurt. You're going to need an opponent to make a stupid mistake. And so every championship run should be viewed in a great light, and not necessarily a full-on fraud light should pop on for those. So I'm excited to watch New England this coming Sunday, AFC Championship game in Denver. They opened as 6.5-point favorites. It got bet up to 7.5. It's now down to 5.5. I have seen it even at 4.5.
It's just all over the place.
It is all over the place. And they are going to be road favorites in the AFC Championship game in Drake May's second year. And how quickly it has become of maybe May is going to take some of the mantle and quickly join that elite class of AFC quarterbacks. Even with how bad he's been in the postseason. He was great in the regular season. Now he'll have potentially a Super Bowl appearance on his resume before Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson.
Which would be insane. Just nuts.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to this last game. Rams at Bears. Fantastic game. Ends up going to overtime. Not the cleanest offensive game. Weather probably factored into that. I was hoping for a little more offensive fireworks. I expected a little more offensive fireworks. And there still were plays made. Most notably, Caleb Williams' throw to even send it to overtime. But the Rams didn't win this game 2017. Neither QB was great. Matthew Stafford was under 50% completion. Caleb Williams, classic self, right around 50% completion. He throws 3 picks in this game. But yeah, Rams win 2017. My first question to y'all is thoughts on the Iceman nickname that has been going around. Fan?
For Caleb Williams?
Yes. Pro or con?
Pro.
You're pro?
I haven't heard it till now. My initial reaction is like,
You know what they're referencing as well? They're referencing Iceman from
Top Gun. Yeah.
Not just like that he's
at a hockey game one
He's
time.
cold.
He's in the Trae Young celly.
Not that he's not like Matty Ice or Trey.
Yeah.
Trey Young.
So what's the reference?
Because
to,
he's always making plays at the end of games. Like he's a killer. Like he hits the kill shots.
Okay.
Yeah, Iceman was known for being a killer and having that instinct and not being wavered.
Okay.
I think it's a little early personally. I'm also just going to be a little hesitant of it because Iceman to me is Spurs legend, George Gervin, Iceman, back in the 80s. So holds high esteem for me as like a sports nickname already. I don't know if Caleb has quite earned that yet, but
Yeah.
I get the thought, I get the sentiment.
Also, I feel like it's weird for quarterbacks to have nicknames. I typically think of like wide receivers, safeties,
I mean, I am now trying to think of another wide receiver nickname.
or like quarterback nickname.
Another quarterback, nickname in the league that's not like
9.
A-Rod. Well, there is 9. That's a good point.
Mahoma.
No, that is. I have not heard that one.
I've heard that one a ton.
That's a classic. We're getting into a lot of like hater nicknames though. Like
Yeah.
who has a non-hater nickname?
I don't think they do.
Like
I
Tua turned the ball over.
yeah.
Tua turned the ball over.
But that's another hater nickname. Like what QB gets a non-hater nickname?
Carson Bum.
Tyler Shuck.
That's just his
That's
name.
that's not a nickname.
I legitimately can't think of one.
Anyway, I stand by my.
There was Matty Ice,
Yeah.
but that's really it.
I mean, even like retired guys like Big Ben, but like that's just kind of like that's not even like doesn't feel like a true nickname because it really does just like his name is Ben and he's big.
Yeah.
So he's Big Ben.
That is
Yeah.
one thing they don't have on the NBA is nicknames.
Yeah, NBA be firing out nicknames. It's a volume shooter type thing for nicknames.
Yeah.
The anomaly.
The anomaly.
So
Yep.
that's I think one reason I was a little hesitant. It just feels weird to have a quarterback with a nickname.
If any quarterback would get a nickname, though, it would be
I've not seen that one either.
Purdy.
Glock Purdy. Thank you, Bizarre 84.
I'm gonna have to start calling Glock Purdy.
No, there's no. I'm not. I could sit here in silence for 5 minutes and try and think. So I'm not going to do that.
Caleb Williams. It does kind of make sense that he would be a QB that gets a nickname though, because he just is like, whether you think it's negative or positive aura. Like he's a guy that just kind of has that.
Does he have the most controversial aura in
to
the
him.
NFL?
Probably.
I don't know. 9.
9 isn't
9.
controversial.
It's not controversial.
Universal ass. 9. That's what it stands for, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I do think there is some controversy on whether or not what became the meme was aura or not.
It was initially, but then he played so bad, it kind of
Yeah.
it made it hard to argue that was positive aura when he's putting up.
I still
Bryce
think
Young
Caleb
stat
Williams has a lot of
lines.
controvery because some people are like, "Oh, painted fingernails are still like a no go for me," and some people are like, "I don't care, he balls. It's kind of sick. Like that's
Yeah.
aura to have your fingernails, your ears like." Some people are just like, "We don't care." So I think there's more controversy around his aura.
9 started fusing like Bryce Young stat lines with Justin Herbert playoff stat lines in terms of like turnovers and like low passing yard volume.
Not
And that's not a spot you want to be in.
Yeah, no.
But
Funny enough, Caleb's number is 9 times 2, so that's why he's so good.
Yeah, he's twice the
It's
quarterback.
two,
9
two,
is.
2 negative 9s multiplied. That actually doesn't make any sense either. It's not how the math works.
It's 9. Yeah.
Not exactly.
Maybe
no.
81.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, back to the game. The X's, the O's. Where were you, JP?
He hadn't started yet.
Oh.
I'll go ahead and start. We got the start a lot of people expected in this game,
Sure.
which was that explosive offenses. Chicago drives down the field. Caleb throws a pick, one of his 3 picks in this game. But in the first 3 drives, we have 5 plays of 15 or more yards. The Rams take the early lead, which was expected. But the middle part of this game completely slowed. The first play of the second quarter is a touchdown for Chicago. We don't see another touchdown until 8:50 left in the fourth quarter. So go ahead and give your flowers and say your thank yous in the chat for all of you that bet the under on this game. As I predicted, we went well under the under. It was never really in doubt. Over under was 48.5. We ended up with 37 points in this game. A lot of people thought the over was the bet of the weekend. But no, the under hits. And in that lull between the two touchdowns, we saw 9 punts, 6 points, and 2 turnovers. But the lull switched, and I thought it was the coaching moment of the weekend for me. As bad as, which I do think Sean McVay was bad in this game, the adjustment he makes in the third quarter where he goes from 2 drives back-to-back for the Rams, there were 3 and out and punts. In those 2 drives, the Rams threw it 5 times and ran it once. After those 2 drives, there's a moment on the broadcast where McVay goes up to his offensive line and his offense, and he's essentially saying, we're good. And I think I saw, we're going to get back to running the football. And they do just that. The next drive that they score the touchdown on, they run it 8 times on a 14-play drive and take the lead 17-10. Chicago drives down the field. They turn it over on downs. They force a 5 and out, essentially, 1 first down and then a punt and get another chance. And, of course, Caleb completes. Last week we thought the 4th and 8 was something special. This was that and way more. I don't think if you want to have a debate about it, Jack, you're welcome to die on that hill.
I think the 4th and 8 is way more impressive of a throw.
I do think there's an argument for that, but I do think
the moment
throw that he made is better than a good throw, which is what you did say it was.
I think it was a great throw. I think thinking it was some historic or like only 3 other QBs in the league are making that throw is a bit much. The throw combined with the moment of like you gotta have it is like it's an all-time moment. I don't think it's an all-time throw, if that makes sense.
It was a fadeaway 50-yard pass.
Fadeaway. He back, turns, sets, and just kind of leans in. And
this is where he started his throwing motion from. If that's the end zone, he threw it like that.
Yeah,
he didn't even get his full hips in.
That's what I'm
shout
saying.
out my dog.
He doesn't get to step into it. There's guys bearing down on him. He's literally like. He turns and like does it as he's falling back because the defenders are bearing down on him. I don't know how you don't consider that a great throw, and I agree. I think
it's a great throw. I don't think it's an all-time throw.
It was
Josh Allen's making that throw. Patrick Mahomes is making that throw. I trust Lamar Jackson to make that throw.
I don't trust
4.
Biased. You can call me biased.
I trust Lamar Jackson.
I think Jaden Daniels is making that throw.
Okay, so we're in an elite company of 5.
I think Jordan Love is making that throw. You disagree. I think Jordan Love is making that throw.
If he started standing there, but I don't think he's getting 20 or 30 yards back and then making the throw.
He just got to do one of these back. I think what really ruins it for me, and this is like out of Caleb Williams' control, but the ball goes up. Well, first there's the panic of like, oh no, this is disastrous.
Yeah.
Like how have we ended up here? The throw goes up, and then it pans to the end zone, and it's Cole Kmet, and the DB has just been
flailing.
Been tossed legally. There's no like. They basically have locked arms, and then Cole Kmet just releases. It's not like Cole Kmet shoves him. So my first reaction is like, how in the hell as the DB do you let Cole Kmet get 5 yards of space off of you in the end zone when you know what's about to happen? It's a prayer ball, basically. My rage bait take, I don't believe this. I almost sent this in Yapping, our group chat, was I saw Marshall Reed make that throw week 3 of the season against Notre Dame.
A little bit of a different circumstance. But sure, maybe. Still, though, it's a great throw.
It's a great throw.
It's an iconic throw. Iceman, I think he deserved that, especially with the snow coming down in the crowd.
Yeah, you can never have a Miami quarterback nicknamed Iceman. Or Los Angeles quarterback.
This is true.
It does work as in Chicago, even though that's not like the meaning behind the nickname. The fact it's in Chicago, though, does like add to it a little bit.
Windy man in the Windy City. They score the touchdown, regardless of whether you think it's a good throw or not, which it was a great throw. It's an excellent throw. It's one of the throws of the season.
Jack's such a hater.
All I'm saying is he's still not been as far in the playoffs as Jaden Daniels has.
There's a huge argument for, whether or not Chicago should have went for 2, and it's only an argument because they lost the game, because that's how stupid this sport is we only debate in hypotheticals if the hypothetical didn't happen. You think of like If Man, who's up here on the wall for us. But you also think of moments like this of whether or not you should have went for 2. The argument for them going for 2 is completely in favor of not going for it. The Bears inside the 5 had run 6 plays so far that day. Inside the 5, meaning a 2-point conversion is running from the 3-yard line, essentially the same distance. In those 6 plays, they had gained just 6 yards on those plays. They had scored a touchdown on 1 of them. So you have the unbelievable emotion of that play by Caleb. You have the crowd who would be unable to quiet down because no way in hell I'm getting quiet for a 2-point conversion after that play. A lot of murmurs throughout the crowd. Yes, they had a timeout, which means they could have called it and got set, but that allows the Rams to get set, and that allows them to, refocus and huddle up and get the right personnel on the field, whatever it may be. You play off your crowd. You let them affect overtime. Your last 2 drives in the game had gone for 111 total yards, and you had just stopped the Rams and held them to a 15-yard drive. You make them beat you. That's what you do. It's 100% the right choice to kick the extra point, and to be fair, it worked.
Yeah.
The Rams got it first. They went 3 and out, and you were driving with the ball, and then Caleb throws a pick, whether it's DJ Moore's fault or not. It's an unreal catch on the interception, too, by Cameron Curl.
100%.
Those
Commander legend.
Just because that happened doesn't mean you go back and then go against a very, very logical argument in terms of not going for 2. It was another game, and it was a great cap on this weekend of where turnovers cost one team dearly. Chicago turned it over 3 times on 3 Caleb picks. Now, I do think it's easy to argue that they weren't all Caleb's fault, but he doesn't feel that way, which is a net positive, just like Josh Allen doesn't feel that way. And they also turned it over on downs twice, both of which were in field goal range. That was a huge talking point of whether or not, you want Ben Johnson to kick the field goal there. I do think, part of the reason that they're in the spot that they're in is because Ben Johnson is so dynamic as a play caller and so aggressive this year. And part of the reason Detroit will be in games that they were in for when he was the offensive coordinator was because of that. So you can't take the aggressiveness out of the aggressor. And being aggressive in key moments is it's a double-edged sword. Indiana, last night in the national championship, they went for it on 4th down and 5+ twice. If they don't convert either of those 4th downs, they may very well lose the national championship, and then Kurt Cignetti gets bashed. But instead, because they converted them, the guts of Kurt Cignetti. The guts of Kurt Cignetti.
Yeah.
What a gutsy play from Fernando Mendoza. So I do think it's a double-edged sword. You take it or leave it there. I always will back up someone who believes in their offense and their ability to go out there and convert on one play. We are all guilty of the same damn thing. Unless me personally, I haven't met a single Madden or college football player of the video game who is not aggressive on 4th down, where punting is not an option. 4th and 17, we're going for it. I don't care. So you can't, that's so hypocritical of you to say that, you can't go for it there when you go for it every single time in the video game. I'll get it. I'll be at different stakes, but still, I don't think you can take that out of Ben Johnson. With the 5 turnovers, though, it is yet another game like the Buffalo game where they went to overtime and the Bears had the ball driving to go score and win, and Buffalo was in the same exact spot. So what a funny weekend in terms of 2 games where turnover battle was 5-1 in the Buffalo-Denver game, and it's technically 5-0 because I count turnover on downs in the Chicago Rams game, and yet both have the ball and are driving and picked up 1st downs to go and win the game. That's what's so unique about football, and it's what makes the game so great. These 2 teams were not out of it when they handed the other team 5 or 4 free possessions. I do think DJ Moore should get blamed to a degree, but he also had the 2 plays against Green Bay in 2 different games. The winning touchdown in overtime and then the winning touchdown in the 4th quarter in the wild card game. So you're not here without him.
Yeah.
If anyone's to blame, I do think Rome Odunze is to blame for 2 of his plays, dropping a surefire touchdown, and then on 3rd and goal, he refuses to block a DB, and DeAndre Swift is forced to hurdle someone and then if Roma Dunze blocks this dude, DeAndre Swift hurdles and then scores. Instead, he hurdles and gets tackled, and it costs them. They turn it over on downs on the very next play, so it costs them from scoring.
Yeah.
If anyone's to blame, maybe Dunze is to blame. But I do think last thing for Chicago here, and we can talk about this, is like it's cliche to say, but the sky is the limit for Chicago. I do want to preface that with it was very easy to say the exact same thing last year with Jaden Daniels. You could maybe even say the same thing 2 years ago with Houston and C.J. Stroud winning a playoff game. They're obviously going to need to avoid needing so many comebacks and miraculous plays and Iceman every single week. But I do kind of expect them to get better, like a Caleb especially. Jaden in Washington, it was really injuries this year. I wouldn't necessarily say it was that they got worse. They were hurt. They were also older.
Yeah.
They made some questionable moves.
There's a lot of reasons, not a 1-1 correlation, but the injuries is the biggest thing.
You let Diami Brown go and instead bring in Debo Samuel, who Debo had a good year, but you make some other questionable decisions there. Caleb, I do think he improves a ton. He's already talked about he's going to improve or try to improve on his completion percentage and hitting the layups. Kamario Taylor, please take notes. And I recall...
If he also wants to hit a fadeaway 50-yard pass once or twice in a big moment, that'd be cool too.
Kamario might be able to make that throw.
I genuinely think he could. I believe.
We'll see. Marcel Reed maybe might be able to make that throw.
Marcel Reed could not make that throw.
You recall Lamar's early years. I recall Josh Allen's first 2 years, and to speak to Sanders here, so he understands, to use the Herbert language. Caleb Williams has only played 2 games, and you think of 2 playoff games. You think of Peyton Manning's early years, especially his rookie year. The sky's the limit for Caleb Williams as well. So, Caleb is not finishing year 6; he's finishing year 2. In his first year with this head coach. But I do think anything could be possible for Chicago. They've got to make moves. But they're going to have another draft class. Everybody's young. Everybody's returning for the most part. And they very well could be live next year in the NFC, especially in the NFC North, a division that they've already won in their first year with Ben Johnson as head coach. So it'll be exciting to watch them going forward. But again, that is to preface, look what happened to the Commanders this year. It's not all a guarantee.
There's reason to be optimistic, but correct, it's not all a guarantee. So there's no let me go and buy my Super Bowl tickets for next year if I'm a Bears fan because I know we're going to be there. There is let me go ahead and buy my Super Bowl tickets for next year because there's a chance, and hey, if not, I can just sell them, right?
Yeah.
But there's reasons. They're a much younger team. The biggest thing is you want to see a little progression from Caleb Williams, and then using some of those draft picks to get some more defensive playmakers because it was a fine defense, but they gave up a lot of points and a lot of yards in the regular season. And so if you can bank on the Caleb Williams improvement, that's internal improvement. Maybe try and go get some more defensive players to help out that side of the ball.
My one caution for the Bears might be they went 8-4 in 1-possession games this year. Is that good enough to be awful next year?
No.
I actually went back. Okay, I went back. I don't think it is, but I did. There might be precedent. All right, 2018 Cowboys. Well, I went and found a Yahoo article that listed out the teams that were really good in 1-possession games. 2012 Colts 9-1, 7-1 the next year. That's good news. Broncos in 15 were 9-3, 3-4 the next year. The Raiders in 16 were 8-2, 4-3 the next year. The 18 Cowboys, and this is where I think the Bears might need to be nervous. 10-4 in 18, 1-6 the next year. The Seahawks are your last beacon of hope. 11-3 in 19, 8-3 the next year. And then in 2022, you got Vikings going 12-1, undefeated in the regular season, 6-8 the next year. The Chiefs 11-0 in 24, 1-9 the next year. Now you have the Bears 8-4 in 1-possession games. I think they're good. I just wanted to bring that stat up because it's one of my favorite stats.
It is a good stat, and it is a cause for concern because some of that stuff is out of your control.
It's all out of your control. I think that's the entire point. Is it's almost every one of those. I believe, every one of the. regresses to the mean. No team improved on a really, really good
But you don't
season.
need to improve. I think the hope is you maybe aren't as many one-score games. And
That's what we
you,
said
you
about
can
the
say
Chiefs.
everything's out of your control, but having a guy like Caleb Williams that can make big plays down the stretch is big time.
Yeah.
And it's not a guarantee that he'll be
Yeah.
able to do it again because, like, Mahomes couldn't do it this year.
Yeah.
But it gives you reasons for optimism on that front. My bigger concern is the schedule's going to get harder,
Yep.
and you're in a very tough division,
Yeah.
right? You can say the line contention window is closed, and maybe it is, but they're not going to go down, without
fighting.
trying.
Yeah.
And the Packers are still right there, going to work. And hey, the Vikings still won 9 games this year, shout out 9, and they're going to continue to try and be good.
Yeah.
Like, you got to still fight your way through a tough division. And if some of those one-score games against your division team, your teams in your division, your rivals in your division, don't go your way, then maybe you're like a 7 seed. You're like the Packers, and you have to try and fight your way playing on
Yeah.
the road every week or something against good teams. So it's a little scary.
I think they'd take a playoff appearance, though, next year.
Sure.
Regardless if it was
Playoff
winning the
appearance
division
and
or not.
progression from Caleb.
Yeah, absolutely. They play, of course, their own division, but they will play the AFC East. So they'll play the Patriots and the Bills next year,
Dang.
and they will also play the NFC South, the worst division. But that also is Tyler Shuck's division. So look out. To
Sure.
speak to it, though, the three first place teams they'll have to play the Jaguars, Philly, and the Seattle Seahawks next year. So not an easy schedule, but it also, I would argue, wasn't necessarily an easy schedule this year either.
That's fair.
To flip to the Rams side,
Ooh. No, you're good. You're good. Because you're chill. I was making sure they didn't have a penultimate game against the Commanders on their schedule.
oh,
That would flip it,
Yeah, no,
one
they
way or the
don't.
other. They dodged that scare.
I looked at that earlier
Because everything
too.
else is irrelevant if you lose that game to the Commanders.
Yeah.
Your season's
But
effectively over.
I was mainly looking to see if any of our teams play, and none of our teams play each other next year.
That's crazy.
That's pretty sad.
I may have
yeah.
to pick a new team then. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding.
I'm sure like some of our teams will play each
Yeah.
other at some point. Like the Raiders play the Chargers. So we'll see.
If Gino's not on the roster, you're not going to be a Raiders guy
No.
anymore.
Although Gino is behind me, the GOAT.
Shout out Gino.
On the Rams side, look, I gave a ton of credit earlier to Sean McVay and the decision to get back to running the football and at least towards a touchdown drive. But I do think like there are a ton of moments this year where decision making in some moments don't necessarily make sense. I think of the game I've mentioned a ton in the San Francisco game, Thursday Night Football, decisions to change the way you want to kick, and it ends up giving San Francisco a short field. They go down, kick a field goal, and win. And in this game, I think the one is it doesn't end up costing them, but it doesn't make any sense to me. They get the ball back after Caleb and the Bears turn it over on downs inside the 5. They pick up a first down. It's 1st and 10 from the 14, the Rams 14. They run it twice. Chicago calls a timeout at 2:07 left. So Chicago's got one timeout left, and there's 2 minutes, 7 seconds left on the clock. It's 3rd and 10 from the Rams 14, and they just handed the ball off to a give-up Kyron Williams run. Why not take a chance with Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams? Stafford had not thrown a pick at that point. Didn't throw a pick in the game, so why he's not going to put the ball at risk in that moment. Why not take a chance to pick up a first down, and then Chicago would have one timeout, and you would have the 2-minute warning would hit, and so the game would be over.
Yeah.
At that point. Instead, they give up and just run the football up the middle. It doesn't save time. Like running the football in that spot saves no time. It may save 3 seconds because even if you throw an incompletion immediately and it's 2 minutes, 3 seconds left, the punt is going to force a 2-minute
Correct.
warning. So you don't even say the 2-minute warning or anything. You save no time in that game. So I do think like decisions like that are going to be really interesting because they're going to be put in that spot 4 to 5 times against Seattle.
Yeah.
And San Francisco was put in that spot already against Seattle like this past weekend where it's 4th down very early in the game and they are like, we have to go for it. And we run to Kyle Juszczyk CMC speed option to the boundary.
Sure.
The same spot, Rams are going to be in a few times where they have to make decisions on 4th down. So it is something to look at. You talk about Sean McVay in such a positive light. He's going to accomplish so much. He's only just now turned past 40 years old, so long career ahead of him. But it has been a Achilles heel, if anything, for the Rams this year, is some questionable decision making in key spots, and they are losing games where it really feels like, man, did we lose that game for real? You think of the Eagles game, the blocked field goal and the missed field goal in different orders there. You think of the Niners game on Thursday Night Football, the Panthers game where they turn over a bunch on the road, the Seattle game where they lose it in overtime when they're up 30-14, and then the Falcons game on Monday Night Football the very following week is, just they get beat by the Falcons on Monday Night Football. Come on, bro.
Yeah, that's
so
you can kind of leave it there.
That's their 5 losses this year, and they have had just one game really in general this year where it's been like in the balance late, and I'd argue that game wasn't in the balance really whatsoever, and that was the Lions game earlier this year. It was just a shootout, and they just outscored Detroit. Other than that, they've of course had the two playoff games where it hasn't caught up to them, but it may catch up to them again this week. It's something to definitely look at going forward. But we were right in the feeling that it would not affect them, the cold in this game, and a lot of people felt that way. Matthew Stafford now improves to 2-9 in games in the cold. He plays another great game in the snow. Puka Nacua was slowed a little bit, but he made some really critical plays, including the third down and overtime that leads towards the field goal. And Devontae Adams has just his second catch of the day, but it's the biggest one 2 plays before the Nacua catch. This team, is going to be a very popular pick this weekend and a very popular Super Bowl pick.
Yep.
A lot of money is going to go on them, I imagine, in the Vegas world. But they are a team that, can be tested and has been tested and can get in their own way. So it's something I'm looking at going into next week. Do they get in their own way and, give Seattle a game that they shouldn't have? Because you look at the 2 matchups, Sam Darnold threw 4 picks, and yet because the Rams, didn't make enough plays, Seattle had a kick to win the game.
Yeah.
From 63 yards. And then they're up 30-14 in the fourth quarter, and Seattle turns it around and wins the game. Now, it very easily you could make the opposite argument of they turned Sam Darnold over 4 times, and the game really was never close. And they were up 16 in Seattle's building in the fourth quarter. They were also just the second team ever to score a touchdown in overtime and lose the game in NFL history. So there's arguments for both sides, but I do think they might get in their own way, whether it's this week or even next week or in 2 weeks if it's the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots.
No, I think that's fair. It's not. There's a fear for me, at least, they maybe peaked a little early in terms of the mid-season was when everything was going right for them, and now it's maybe 1 week the defense isn't great, or Matthew Stafford doesn't have his best game against the Bears. But then there's also a lot of comfort because it's hey, but then they made the plays that need to be made in this game. Matthew Stafford has not under 50% completion, but you mentioned the pass he hit to Devontae Adams. I mean, that's an insane throw, opposite hash to the sideline. Mm-hmm. So it's well, hey, if I can just bank on him to make that throw. It's an interesting spot to be. I'm excited to talk about their game against the Seahawks on Thursday, so in a couple of days, because it'll be a good one. Anything else, or should we move on and let Sanders talk about some women's basketball for a minute?
Bang.
That's all.
Cool.
That's all. Huge win for Mississippi State on Sunday. It's the one game this season I think I'm going to miss, or I did miss it. I'd hope to not miss any more. I took 2 vacation days, and I missed the Ole Miss game, which was packed, and I'm very sad that I missed that. Not sad, less sad, given that we lost. If we had won, they'd have been well, I missed an incredible, late win, but we lose that game. But on Sunday, Purcell did what I kind of thought he was going to do. I don't remember if I said it to y'all, but I definitely said to someone, I was with Vanderbilt and Kentucky, back-to-back home games, I'm 95% confident we're going to win one of them. Because the last 2 years, Purcell's gotten a top 10 win. 2023, it was LSU at home. 2024 was number 10, Oklahoma. 2 huge wins. And so I've kind of just come to not expect it because it's that would be
It kind of sounds like you're expecting it, though.
I didn't expect it, but the vibes were there. I wouldn't go into every season expecting it, but knowing this team and having watched this team play every game, I was expecting it from this team. I wouldn't put that on every team. Having if I don't know how the team's going to look, but having seen this team play, I was kind of expecting it. And they showed out. It was kind of crazy. A lot of it was shooting dependent. And that's one thing I'll be watching going forward. We shot 38% from 3. They shot 17% from 3. I believe they attempted like 31 attempts to our 16 maybe. And then we were 65% from the free throw line to their 53. So you can call out of that luck. I think that if we play Kentucky again, they would shoot better than that. But where we really dominated was the boards. Favor Ndozi had a fantastic day, another double-double with 10 points and 21 rebounds. And then our best scorers, Treyana Crisp and Carissa Richardson, both had great nights. 16 points for Crisp, 4 out of 5 from 3. And then Richardson, 23 points, 9 of 13 from the floor. It's going well. We're now 2-4 in SEC play, but those 4 losses, one of them was to Vandy, one of them was to Oklahoma, one of them was to Tennessee. The Tennessee loss and the Vandy loss were both close. Vandy was by 5. Tennessee was it may have been by a little over 10, but that Tennessee game was tough. But yeah, state's trending up. We are now projected 9 seed. We moved up from a 10 seed.
Dope.
Projected to go back to California for the second year in a row, this time to UCLA. Last year we went to USC and won a first-round matchup before losing to USC in the second round, I believe. So it's trending up. I saw someone on Twitter about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I think I talked about this, who was like, Coach Purcell needs to do something before he begs people to come to his games. I work every game. I go to every game, and I love it. I cheer when I can. When I'm not technically working, if I can stand in the corner and make some noise, I will. But I was like, what do you want from him? He's got 2 top 10 wins in the last 2 seasons. He's made the tournament 2 out of 3 years. Now he's up to 3 tournament wins in two appearances. What more do you want? And now this huge win. I really hope that it kind of roller coasters, kind of rolls into more attendance from students, more attendance from fans, louder hum. Because I can remember the days of Vic Schaefer of literally, I believe this the most people ever had in the hump was for a women's basketball game against South Carolina. So I remember that game in person. I really hope that we can kind of get back to that. But big win. I watched the entire thing. I had it on my phone while me and all the boys were watching the NFL game on the big TV. But crazy. It was so much fun to watch that and see everything clicking well. Yeah.
It's a critical win. It snapped a 4-game losing streak. And that a critical time to do it too, because next 2 games on the road, you felt like you needed to grab at least one of these 2, which speaks to the desperation that might have been played in this kind of game. And it showed, I thought, in the fourth quarter with the effort defensively, especially turning the ball over a ton. I think Kentucky had 5 turnovers in the fourth quarter. It was 47-51 with 8 minutes left, and we go on a 20-12 run to end the game. And a lot of that was shown in the defensive intensity and then hitting some really critical threes. The Purcell notion, which again it continues to be a notion in every damn sport at this university, of the Jans notion or the Levy notion, or now rightfully so it was the Lamonis motion for 3 years, but even in his first year following the national championship, it was the Lamonis notion of, oh, he can't get it done, he'll never get it done.
Yeah,
we will never win a game. We'll never win a big game. We'll never make the tournament again. We'll never do this, do that, do that. We'll never recruit this player. They've all had their ups and downs. They've all had their peaks and valleys, but all of them have accomplished things, and they have Levy has accomplished making a bowl game and winning an SEC game, considering everything that the program was in with the death of Mike Leach. I do think that deserves to be celebrated, and I do think you look towards this season in a positive light while his job might be on the line. But for Jans and Purcell especially, it has been pure stupidity anytime people have criticized the two.
Yeah.
because all they've done is put State in the tournament, put them in favorable positions, win a big game here or there. Jans has actually won less than Purcell has
Yeah.
in terms of big games, especially in the hump. So I hate that people will be so short-sighted and will just are too prone to forget. You know, you walk into for Jans especially, you walk into a Humphrey Coliseum where you see, you know, just 3 banners of tournament appearances on them, and one of those banners is only Chris Jan's appearances. Purcell, we've obviously had a much better basketball program before him, but he's put the team in the tournament. He's won games. I hate the people that are so quick to react
Sure.
in terms of bad performances. So
Yeah. I didn't get a chance to go back and do the research because I don't really know what resources I would use, but I would love to know, like, other coaches who've gotten 3 top 10 wins in their first 4 years. Like, it can't be a lot because especially women's basketball is different from men's basketball. Until I would say the mid-2010s, women's basketball was like the top 2 to 3 teams in the country and everybody else, and that was kind of it. I like the team that was ranked, you know, first was going to win the championship, or, you know, top 5. There's so much more parity now.
it was
in
always
women's
a
basketball.
joke about when you're filling out your women's bracket.
Yeah.
Picking UConn.
You were picking UConn, and then
You're just
before
picking the
that,
high
it was
seed every
Tennessee.
round.
It was Tennessee. Oh yeah, there was one year where it was the high seed, you know, the 4-1 seeds, and then the 8 1s and 2s. But it was UConn from 2000 until 2017, and before that, it was Tennessee for years and years. It's not the same anymore, so I think that might skew the, you know, top 10 wins a little bit because there's more parity now. It is, I think, easier to get those top 10 wins, but it's still really impressive from Purcell, and he's done it in, you know, in the last 3 years after building it up year 1 and not having one in his first year, making the tournament,
He
getting
hasn't had
2
a
wins.
consistent roster either.
Mm-mm.
Been a lot of roster turnover every single year. So
Yeah.
to do it every single year that's impressive as well.
Yep.
Well done.
Cool.
We'll be back for y'all Thursday just to wrap it up. We'll preview the AFC and NFC championship game, and then do we all want to like pick a team or a couple teams to do like a off-season primer for? If you have like a team you're like, I really like, I think they have a
NFL or
very
college?
NFL. Like
Okay.
I think they, you know, have a really intriguing off-season coming up. So
Sure.
like, you know, they're at a crossroads, and then just kind of break those down to have a bit of a longer show.
Yeah, JP, if you want to get, we'll wait till after. I think after the Super Bowl is when we can hit like worst interceptions of the season.
Oh yeah. Wait for it. The season ain't over yet.
Yeah.
Sam
Yeah.
Darnold's still playing.
yeah.
This is true.
Jared Stidham is going to play this weekend.
I would love just a disastrous Jared Stidham interception.
Oh man.
All right, but yeah, that's all we have for today. So we'll get out of here. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. It means a lot, and you should tune back in Thursday for our preview show. Peace.
See ya.